Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you're doing well. It's time for another Tech Talk, and we record these on Fridays now, and they get published on Sundays, just so it's a bit easier to be able to get them out on time every time. So it means that there is a little bit less time to put in questions, but I feel like if you feel like you've question has been missed or whatever from last time, just stick it in this one, and then we'll go through it. So Tech Talks, pretty much simple. It's a kind of podcasty thing we do where we just go through your comments and thoughts and questions live on Twitch and also on YouTube as well from the previous one. So if you have any thoughts, if you have any ideas, obviously stick them in so we can have a look. There's been not too much going on in War Thunder this week. It's been pretty chill. Haven't really felt like there's been a metric ton going on, and we can just kind of relax, have a good time, and chill. So obviously, we have like an update which is coming out this year. You got the Christmas sales and then the Christmas event. So there's still a lot to go, even at this point of the year. But yeah, it's kind of nuts. Hey, Alan, Minnesota, nice to see you. I have a problem with War Thunder. It's not launching. Do you have any advice to fix it? Guardian support is usually the best place to do that, since obviously it might be a technical issue or it might be a launcher issue. You could always reinstall and see what happens. That's usually fixes stuff like that. So let's go through the Tech Talk stuff, and happy Thanksgiving to all you Americans from Thursday. Hopefully you had a good time, and happy rest of the week for everybody else, I suppose. You get Thursday, everyone else gets everything else. So we have Karam Chan with once again the good old timestamps. Thank you. It's very kind of you to do this, and as always, as I've said, if people want to do this stuff, I can, sort out games or sort out things for you to basically as a form of payment, just to say thank you at the end of the day. Let's get into the first thing. This is from Debugden. I definitely want to see more transformative mods, like we see on the T80 and the BMPs. Upgrading or side grading main armaments is a really cool idea as well, like having the Tiger 2H being able to have a mod that swaps it to the 105, or British vehicles getting access to the Little John adapter on some vehicles. Basically anything that changes the vehicle visually, I'm really in favour of. Different guns, different turrets, add-ons, stuff like that. So, like, kind of similar to World of Tanks, basically, right? Like, we have, like, the Winterketten, we have, like, the Ostketten, we have a ton of different stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And, yeah, the mods that we have in-game, the BMP-1P, the T80U-MK, or whatever it's called, all that stuff is pretty cool. One of the problems I'm always worried about with that is fundamentally changing the vehicle and its capabilities. So one of the issues I have in War Thunder, and I tell you what, over this last year it's got a lot better, but it's always going to continuously be a problem, but it's not as bad of a problem now as it used to be, is the stock grind, right? Stock grinds are really tough when it comes to War Thunder, and overall it is something which is really bad, especially when you have a look at the high echelons of the game. So basically what you have, if you keep adding these types of mods, like for example the T80 mod, which gives you, armor, but also gives you a, thermals, pretty much. The BMP-1P gives you a better ATGM, and also it gives you access to smoke grenades. Two very, very nice things. But then Winterketten and Ostketten just gives you slightly wider tracks, which buff you in a certain way and nerf you in another. And then obviously you got the TOG, which, it gives you access to a smoke launcher and then gives you 2 weak spots. So I don't mind modifications which kind of give you a little bit one way and then take away in another way. But the problem is when you have a mod which just distinctly makes the vehicle a better one. If that happens, what happens is it makes the stock experience of that vehicle worse, because a lot of the times the vehicle's balance is based off of the vehicle's balance is based off of when it's in that kind of like spaded configuration. So that just kind of sucks, for the vehicle itself. And if we are going to go down this like modding area, which I think, you know, is fine to do, I would just like it so it was a different vehicle. So for example, the Tetrarch, because if you don't know what the Little John adapter is, it basically makes the 2-pounder squeezeball gun. So that's what it does, okay? With something like the Tetrarch, if you have something like that, then what you would do is you would create a squeeze bore on the end. It will be able to fire, I don't even know, like 10 rounds, and then you just squeeze the round through, increasing the penetration of the gun. Like that's pretty much what it does, right? So it means that the rounds will penetrate harder, but you'll have a smaller, you know, projectile, creating kind of, I suppose, like an APCR idea. Now, the thing is, if you gave this to all vehicles, technically now they have to balance these vehicles based off of the fact that they would have this, like, involved in them. So that means the stock experience is now a lot worse for the vehicle because you are basing it off its higher end setup. The way to solve this is something we've talked about a lot, which is, you know, BRs of vehicles changing when you actually add in certain factors to them. So, for example, if you add in factors such as BR adjustments when, you know, you get certain modifications. So let's say when you get the squeeze bore, you go up in BR by 0.3 or something. But in the game, we don't have that yet. So if we ever get that, I'm all down. I think it would be really fun and really good. But at the moment, I would actually prefer stuff like that being on stuff like event vehicles, for example. So if they're on event vehicles, that means that we don't have to worry as much about, you know, losing out to these different things and vehicles feeling awful in their stock configurations. Because that, as I said, is one of the biggest issues I personally have. So then we have the next one, which is Estone Driveldo. I probably read that completely wrong. So here's a fun little question. In War Thunder history, what is your favorite major bug? E.g., like when the Seahawk trooned into a dragless megaplane? Oh, yeah. Or when the Swedish HCGM box got the Super 80 gem from the 2077 event. Well, luckily that only lasted like half a day. But yeah, so the one that's being referenced is, so the Seahawk, for some reason, after an update, they just forgot to give it drag. So it literally just went faster than anything else in the game. It just wouldn't lose speed. Which was just, it was just nuts when you actually think about it. So for me, my favorite bug is the magnetic tanks. So back in the day, tank collision was nowhere near as good as it was now. Like, I know a lot of people talk about, you know, tank collision in War Thunder and, you know, talk about how it's janky or you lose too much speed when you hit things, or, you know, if you go up like a hill, it doesn't act like a tank should, or, oh, whereas my power traverse and stuff like that. I come from an era of War Thunder, which, you know, I've pretty much experienced every bug the game had. One of my favorite ones was that, where sometimes if you actually stuck to another tank, so let's say this was like a real tank here, right? You would like go here, and you would magnetize to each other, so then you would just start wobbling and wobbling and wobbling and wobbling, and then sometimes you would just ping off into the distance. So it was just a test of who did that. There was also another hilarious ground one, where on certain maps you just fall through the ground without, you know, going. Like there was an exploit on Advance the Rhine where you could get like an R3 or something similar, and you could straight up just go under the map. And just, it was as if there was like a layer under the map. So you would basically just hang out there. You could scout everything. You could shoot stuff under the map. It was just dumb. Yeah, that one as well, Marlo, I was going to bring up. So one of the favored ones as well was the Churchill. So for some reason, I think Bowtime actually has a video on this one, if you've never seen it. But basically, if you ended up turning over the Churchill, for some reason it would just hover like 20 meters off the ground. No idea why. Like it just did. And basically what that meant was, you could just play the whole map upside down. And another funny one was when torpedoes did like crazy damage, so you could drop torpedoes and everything went nuts. A naval one which was hilarious, which was when they first added in mines. They added in mines as kind of like a CBT test, kind of like how they did submarines. They added that premium vehicle that's there for the Germans, and we tested it a lot. What ended up happening was if it destroyed a large ship, like a destroyer or whatever, it would create two carcasses. So if you blew up a destroyer, it would duplicate and then just explode. And that was very fun. I enjoyed that one too. So yeah, there's been a ton of like just funny ones over the years. Many which I'm glad don't exist anymore. Because obviously they were a bit rough. There was also a bunch like there was a ton which would like crash servers and stuff like that. The Wellington one was funny as well, just like spawning in a bomber and then landing, or crashing into the ground and then getting an automatic like 20,000 RP. That one was quite funny as well. There was a lot of funny ones over the years, but yeah. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. I think if I had to pick one though, it would be the pinging off into a distance one. Like the tanks magnetizing together. The most annoying bug, okay, so the bug which was like the most annoying in history for me was definitely the was either the one where you just fall through the ground, or the one where, well, obviously like all the ones which like crash servers, but there was one which was really bad. Pretty much what happened is turrets wouldn't face you and they would still shoot you. So that was like a huge thing where you would like be playing something like, I don't know, let's say a Panzer IV, and then you'd see around a corner, oh, this guy isn't looking at me. So then you would turn to look at him and to, push around the corner and hit him, and it turns out he was looking at you, but the game thought he wasn't. This was one which happened, or happens, it happened a lot in Enlisted too. So you would have it where you would see like the back of a turret of a tank, you'd shoot it, and then nothing would happen. And it actually turned out the tank was facing you, you just couldn't tell because the game was busted. But luckily they fixed that one just like they did in War Thunder. So that one was so annoying because it meant that you couldn't trust your eyes. And if you can't trust your eyes in a game, then what you're gonna do. Then we have Zanel Samirchevoj. Thank you, TEC, for your tech talks. TEC, anytime. I very much enjoy them and listen to them when I'm going to sleep. It makes going to sleep enjoyable. Well, that's good. I do know a lot of people actually use my stuff to sleep as a sleeping aid. Maybe I should put rain effects in the background of videos. I was actually thinking next year to do some kind of audiobook kind of things, just because, I'm just going to get my slippers, but it makes sense to do so because I'm trying to find a way of, fixing some things. So I really enjoy reading, right? Reading is really enjoyable. I have a great time with it. But I don't really have time just to kind of sit down and not really do anything, and just read. And I know that sounds awful because, people talk about relaxation, people talk about all of these things, but the problem is for me, I don't have that. I don't have that, like, I don't even know what you call it, like gene. I don't like just sitting down not doing anything. I like doing one or two or three things at the same time. So for me, it's important to, continue to do stuff. So one of the things I was thinking is if we do some reading stuff, maybe on like the second channel or maybe like somewhere else, I can put up the readings, so, you know, it means that if you want some audiobooks on certain things, we can do that. Kind of like the content I used to do like 10 years ago, which was really fun. I enjoyed doing it. I just stopped doing it because I ran out of books. I have a lot more books nowadays, though. But thank you for the kind words. So then we have Gov. Hello, Tech. Hello. Lately, I've been frustrated from red gunners and drivers with no ways to fix it other than respawning. What do you think about a medikit modification for ground vehicles? Could be an alternative to crew placement that heals all crew by at least 50%. It also is a bit more realistic than spawning a fully trained tank commander loader from thin air. They tried this mechanic, or they tried to put in this mechanic ages ago, in the form of a premium modification, or a premium consumable, is probably a better way of putting it. And yeah, people said no because it was a very bad idea, because it would, you know, it would basically cost GE or cost SL to be able to do it. So people lambasted it, which is good. They should have lambasted it. It was the correct decision. It was going to be a very pay-to-win mechanic at the end of the day. So, yeah, overall it was nice to get rid of. Is the mechanic itself inherently bad? No, it's just the way that they set it up was no good. I think the way that I would put it is, how about this? So you have the opportunity to use crew replenishment, okay? Because this is only in ground vehicles, by the way, where this is a problem. Everywhere else, it doesn't really matter. So you have the ability to use crew replenishment, but if you want to, instead of the crew replenishment, you can use it to heal a crew member, or basically just replace the crew member. So you get 2 charges instead of 1, and it has this extra ability. So it would cost the same, because basically you are, in effect, changing a crew member, and you have to do it on capture points as well. But it would basically, you know, do the same thing. So that's what I would probably do. I would end up sorting it like that. I think it's not a bad idea. I've always liked the idea of having some kind of medikit thing. I just don't like to do it on the move and around the place. So yeah, I'd be fine with it. I think it would be funny to see at least, or funny to sort out, and definitely worthwhile. I don't want too many people just sitting on cap points all game, but I suppose that's something that people would do. So yeah, I'll be down. Like, I think it'll be fun. Why not? So then we have Polish. Hey Tech, hope you're doing good. I am. I'm doing great, thank you. Do you think the AH-64E Apache could be added to the game? And should the AGM-114L added, but have an increased SL point cost, like the PARS and the EC Tiger UHT? This has been a conversation for many years. And if you haven't noticed what they're doing with certain things, so what they're doing with the fire and forget stuff, which is the big thing about the AGM-114L, it can, with the help of the Apache, it can target multiple targets at once, and then also, at the same time, they guide themselves after launch. The Germans now have the ability of fire and forget. The Italians have the ability of fire and forget. The French now have the ability of fire and forget. So the idea that it won't come to, you know, America or USSR or the other nations, of course it's going to come. The only question is, how does it come to those nations? I think the reason why they added fire and forget capabilities to things which aren't the major nations is pretty obvious. They want people to play those trees, but also at the same time, it's a way of testing a mechanic without blowing everything out the water. If they just gave stuff like that to, let's say, the K-50, or if they gave it to, let's say, I don't know, the Apache, which are 2 vehicles which are actually used, then I think what would end up happening is they would just straight up break the game, which, you know, wouldn't be very good. So right now they're using it as like a common test with the ones that they've added, and then after this move, they will then add in the American and the Soviet versions, And then people will start complaining because they'll start seeing it in their battles. Because right now, they don't really see it in their battles because of, the way that all this stuff works. So, yeah, they'll come. It just depends when. And because it's a when thing and not an if thing, patience is always the way forward. Do I want helicopters to get more capabilities, which are just straight fire and forget? Do I want CAS overall to get easier abilities to be able to maim people? Not really. I think using CAS at the moment at high tier is one of the easiest things that has existed. And the problem I'm having with it is Gaijin's response to the whole thing is pretty laughable. Basically what they say is, well, this stuff in real life is very powerful. It's like, well, yeah, you're right, it is. But if it's really powerful in the game too, then people are just going to stop bothering with it. Like, people don't like just getting their heads caved in over and over again. So if they're going to continue to add this stuff, it's going to continue making people annoyed, which is what we see at the moment. So for me, I would hope that they wouldn't just throw this stuff in, but knowing Gaijin and how they do stuff, they will. Nice to see you, Donny B. Hopefully you're doing good, man. Hopefully life's okay. So we have 321 Cal. Hey, Tech. Hope you're doing well. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But my life at the moment is good. So hopefully your life is going well too. Had a very positive week. Back is completely healed, which means that your boy is back on the weights. And as a person who really enjoys weight training, I'm very happy to be on the good old weights once again. So happy with that. Hopefully, everything's going good. Hopefully you're doing well. And everything is all bongo. I've been stuck at 6-7 America for a while now in ground. The tanks are interesting but fun to play, so much so that I've grinded out most of the air and naval tree. Any pointers to get past this part of the tech tree without my brain turning to mush? I mean, it's the exact same way you play everything to do with these. Like, the simple fact is, all of this stuff is not that hard to play. Things like the heavy tanks for America and also the light tanks which are there are super fun in general to play. So I don't see it as kind of like a mush thing. I see it more as, you're just basically playing the same stuff over and over again. The main thing to understand is if you get bored of that, or bored of the playstyle of the heavy tank and all of that, you do actually have a ton of lighter vehicles that you can bring along in that 6-7 area as well. And of course, just kind of vary up your playstyle, as you kind of go through. The main thing with grinding out anything is to take breaks and play other stuff. Like, that's pretty much how you should always approach these things. So, which is why I always say don't grind one tech tree at once. Like, always try and get like a few tech trees to rank 3, and then like spend, I don't know, a day grinding out like a specific tech tree or, specific vehicles, and then move on to the next one, and then just keep doing that over and over again, and you'll have a much better time than just like playing the same tech tree over and over again. Because if you do that, you're just gonna get bored, which is the moment you're in right now, right? Like, it just gets tiring doing the same stuff over and over and over again. And that's not just like a War Thunder thing, that's just like a life thing. It gets tiring doing the same stuff. So instead, the best thing to do is to straight up just start a new tech tree for a bit. Get it to rank 3 so you can do your dailies and specials, focus on the dailies and specials, and then, just go back to the American stuff and then go again. Play a bit of Germany, play a bit of USSR, play a bit of Britain, play a bit of all these different things. Because it'll give you a good kind of look at, how the rest of the game works. So there's no need to get stuck grinding one tech tree. You can just move it around, try different things, have a good time. No need to do anything silly. Or you could take advantage of the autumn Steam sale and pick up a few games. There was a video I did on the Steam sales, and I did some recommendations in that one. So if you're kind of getting bored of the game itself, like, give those a go. It's good to have, what's the word? It's good to have a bit of variance in your life. Like tonight we're going to be playing some Deep Rock Galactic, which is super fun, so gonna have a good time with that one. So then we have the Enrico Michelli, which is a name I've always enjoyed hearing whenever I've gone through it. The book is out of print now, while the revised edition is getting ready, but it would have explained the context better. Stern and his group TOG did not decide to come up with an old tank and tried convincing someone to build it. They had specific requirements that were set by the superintendent of tank design at Woolwich. A similar set of requirements were later put out for the A20, the Churchill. After some time had passed, 2 months if I recall correctly, the SVD, new requirements which were more lenient and allowed for a turret. If you look at what the A20 looked like, it's not too different in the concept of the TOG-1, and especially an earlier TOG design, drawing number 300G. One of the requirements was to be able to cross a 16-foot trench. Is that guy still here? No. Again, it was not Stern's desire, they actually were against it. Other early requirement was for the tank to not have a turret, and again Stern was instead trying to push for a turret, which was in their pre-requirement proposal and was eventually inserted into the requirements. When the 16-foot trench crossing requirement was dropped, the group had shorter, more sensible designs ready, the TOG-3, because they didn't think such a long tank made sense in the first place, but they were still convinced the UK needed a heavy tank, so were willing to work with what they're asked to do. The book author Andrew Hills has a YouTube channel called AFW Publishing, where he published some videos on the early history of the project. So this was basically talking about the TOG, because we talked about it in its development, or when it was like added to War Thunder. The actual like TOG story is I wouldn't really call it hotly contested, because it one thing I've been trying to like talk about this week, which is it's kind of hard to do, is the actual amount of people that actually care about this stuff. And that isn't like besmirching the thing itself. It's trying to give context to how much this actually matters in the grand scheme of things. And it's something I've tried to work out, because I'm trying to, just from a personal point of view, I want to see how many people are worried about, like, you know, fake designs, worried about, you know, all these different types of things. If War Thunder goes full, let's call it prototype or whatever, how many people would just straight up leave the game, or how many people would not be for the game? And one of the things that's interesting, if you have a look at a lot of the TOG stuff, is the history of the TOG, or how the TOG became to be the TOG, is one of those which is a little bit more kind of contested compared to many other vehicles, and how it became what it was, and why it is what it is, and all of these things. And all I can say is, after looking at it, doesn't seem like it's something that a huge amount of people are interested in. The thing is, it is important to get right. Hey Sarcelator, nice to see you. I see you too, Minish. Hopefully you're doing good. And it does kind of suck that, you know, when it comes to a lot of the online stuff about the TOG is just blatantly wrong. But the cool thing about it is, at least for me, it kind of shows the thing that I've been talking about, which is don't trust everything you read on the internet, and don't trust everything that you hear on the internet, and not even what you hear in books. One of the most enlightening things for me when I was younger was reading about the fact that a lot of the Western history of the Second World War, at least when it came to a lot of books, was pretty much written not by the victors, but by right, okay, how do I put this? After and during the Second World War, a lot of commanders, especially German commanders, were straight up captured, right? And because they were captured, because they either lost areas or because stuff went wrong, and they had to kind of give up what they were doing, right? So what this basically meant was they kept them all in a house in the south of England, and they just audio wired the whole house because why wouldn't you? And the idea was to try and get the true telling of what was going on. So put them in a comfortable place, make them believe that nobody is listening, and then listen. So pretty simple at the end of the day. And a lot of stuff was learnt from there. A lot of stuff from those commanders was learnt. But one of the things that was also allowed was there was many books which were published after the Second World War, which were from, let's say, the German point of view. So it was what actually happened on the Eastern Front, or what actually happened on the Western Front. And it turns out, I don't know if you knew this, but what ended up happening over and over and over again was the people who were involved in writing the books, or the people who were, writing them, well, it just turned out that they did nothing wrong. It just turns out every decision that was made, which either led to the genocide or led to bad command decisions, they were all done by the people who died or just Hitler. Hitler just did everything, right? Everybody just blamed him. Everybody else was fine. And this kind of became the overall message of the Second World War. So you have this guy who is just a megalomaniac, and he's insane, and he's somehow everybody just followed him. No idea how, but yeah, he was a very strong character, and he did all of this stuff like really well, and somehow like he covered everything. He was the master of the tentacles, right? Like that was him. He was just everywhere, all over the place. And nobody else did anything. This guy he was a mastermind of everything. No idea, as I said, no one has any idea how he did this, right? He was just able to do everything. And this was gobbled up. And the reason why it was gobbled up is because after the good old Second World War, you had this thing called the Cold War, which was basically the West once again versus the East, tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. And what ended up happening was people wanted the Germans to not be seen as monsters, even though they literally murdered millions of people. So what ended up happening was there was these large campaigns to try and, I suppose, de-scale a lot of these people and blame everything on certain individuals who were not around to defend themselves. So that's what happened. And that became part of history. That became what people were taught. And that isn't what happened at all, but it was done for political reasons, and it was also done for kind of I suppose, economic reasons as well, because they didn't, like, the powers that be believed that it would be a bad idea, and they were correct, by the way. They believed it would be a bad idea for the German people to be completely castigated because of the stuff that they did, right? But if you actually look at it from a grand scheme of things, and the whole, sins of the father and all of this stuff, and, also the economic position that they were put in, they wanted to try and make it so the Germans were not ousted from the world, is probably the best way of putting it. So there was these huge campaigns to try and humanize them. And one of them was through a lot of these books. And so now that it is a perfect example of how history is not necessarily written by the victor, but it is written by the survivors of the conflicts. Because nowadays people want to hear from both sides, and therefore you will hear a very interesting side, which will be the survivors of the loser side, which will pretty much just say, we didn't do nothing, and everybody was, to blame. There's a YouTuber called TEC, and I really enjoy TEC. he goes through a lot of this stuff because he's incredibly well read. I know a lot of people go after TEC for his like stances on definitions of certain things because he is a Norse in that way. So he believes that certain definitions, you have to stick to them like I don't know, like they have to be this way, even though he also acknowledges that history is incredibly fluid. But the thing that I've always found interesting about TEC is he reads all of the books and he basically goes, okay, so this guy says this, and this guy says this, and this guy says this, and this is the official statistics. It's probably somewhere in the middle of all of these, right? True, Donny. So it's just, I think the basic way of putting it is the whole thing is confusing, and it's very hard to get an accurate picture of what all of the different stuff that went on, especially when it comes to certain developments, and especially if things went wrong, which is the biggest takeaway for me. Stuff which goes right, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to tell their story. Everybody wants to tell them how they were Superman and how they did everything. But if stuff goes wrong, everybody just disappears. And usually the people who are left are people you don't want telling the story. Which is always interesting to think about. So let's go here. I'm just trying to get torpedo kills, but it's not going to happen, man. This Brisson's going to just annihilate me. Let's go this way. So we have House of Schmidt. Let's see what House of Schmidt says. Hey TEC, hi. A few weeks ago, they released the second Moments of Valor trailer with the Vanguard sub J7Ds and Harriers. The ending teased some sort of Operation Rattlesnake. A whole plot of countries having to team up against some sort of evil mercenary group almost sounds like it could be the lore behind a future PvE mode. It's just one of those relatively safe scenarios that wouldn't ruffle feathers of any country. Do you think Gaijin could be teasing something beyond submarines and or carriers? I could be reading far too deep into this, but the Operation Rattlesnake ending was odd. I mean, Gaijin in general, first of all, if you know the people who are working on this stuff, then it all makes sense because they're all big fans of stuff like Ace Combat, for example. And Ace Combat games, or what is that other game that was not very good that everybody likes? I can't remember the name of it. But basically, they're all set up like that. Like, oh, we're just a random mercenary group and all of these countries have decided to fight. And oh, and it's because of this other mercenary group, which we can't name because if we named it, then everybody will get mad at us. So they're all set up like that. It's literally like the Top Gun 2. Unknown country has Gen 6 fighters. Oh, what are we going to do? Yeah, Project Wingman. All of the games are set up like that, and it's just boring. And the reason why they do it is because they don't want to offend anybody. You know what I want in my life? COD? No Russians. Or no Russians, sorry. That's what I need. I need straight up or Homeland. North Korea has invaded America. I need stuff like that. I don't need random ex-military group has decided to blow up random ex-military other group, because we don't want to offend anybody, because we want to sell our game everywhere. So, Operation Rattlesnake, yeah, exactly. Enemy team, my team versus enemy team. Yeah, it's blue versus red, right? It's blue team versus red team. Like, we talked about this, I can't remember, did we talk about the Counter-Strike stuff? I think we did, right? Like, when we were talking about the esports stuff, where back in the day, one of the things that they did with the, was it, I can't remember what it was called, but they wanted to change, they wanted to change Counter-Strike from terrorist counter-terrorist to, like, basically red versus blue, because they were worried the American audience wouldn't ever root for the terrorists, which, I mean, is fair, but, like, it's not really a huge thing. The interesting thing about all of these is it's just made up fiction because they don't want to annoy anybody. And the easiest fiction to do is random military group that is, fake, but also somehow has access to Vanguard submarines, attacks random, nation, and then nations work together to kill this guy, right? Like it's very much something which is not hard to do. It's not hard to set up. It's not hard to, go, and it's some of the most laziest storytelling you'll ever hear. But the main reason why you do it is for the spectacle. If anything, the background story is exactly that. It's a background story. You're not looking to actually sell like a blockbuster thing. And if you remember like the A10 teaser with the wonderful story making of that, which is, I don't know if our boys can get out of there. How are we doing, bozo? Oh, well, it turns out, sir, that I don't know where the air support is. Oh, well, don't worry. Here comes the Thunderbolt. And then let's just mow down a random village. Like this. Or, Sergei. Sergei was what a great story. Two wingmen and a guy sacrificing himself for the greater good by doing nothing. So there you go. So the storylines don't have to be stuff which are like really complex or really interesting. They just have to be there to show the vehicles, right? And that's pretty much it. Rattlesnake will probably be something to do with America, because they have some American premiums that they have to sell, and which are kind of just sat there right now. And also at the same time, it's something where you can do random American military group, like wanders around and, has to get involved in covert operations somewhere, in nondescript Middle Eastern country or nondescript, other country, or nondescript Asian country, and now they have to fight because the guerrillas are back and the guerrillas are fighting. So yeah, it's just the same things as always. It's like it's very boring storytelling. I don't know how else to put it. I find it very dull, and the main thing to look at is the actual, random models that they use. Like the other one, Turkey versus ISIS. I mean, if you know anything about Turkey, that's a very easy sell. And and also at the same time, at least in the areas of the world where Gaijin usually operates, ISIS is not seen as a favorable organization. So yeah, it's definitely not one which is once again a very tough sell. Oh boy, yeah. I think in general they're doing fine with all of those. Like, I'm not too like sad about them or anything, but yeah, the storytelling will be very simple, and I wouldn't get too invested in it. Like, it's not. Ooh, hey, I got a decal. I don't think it's something to really like, think about a lot or anything. It's not something that's going to be super technical, right? If anything, I might make like a video on it in the future or something. They could do like a Hollywood would back in the day, go to poorest country list and choose poorest to be named. I mean, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's like, hey, so we're invading Cambodia. So yeah. Nice to see you, Anuaki. Hopefully you're doing good. But yeah, I think a lot of people read way too far into these things, especially when you have a look at the storytelling of War Thunder. But I mean, it's still fun to speculate, right? If you want, just literally ask the people who are involved. Like, you know some of them, or at least you should do, because they've done work for Gaijin in the past, and they've hired on a lot of people from the content creation things to actually have a look at this, and a lot of them are very bad at keeping their mouth shut. So then we have Silent Ascari. Oh, sorry, Silent Ascari. Hey, TEC. Hello. Just wanted to say hi. Thanks for uploading these on YouTube. I've not been able to catch you live in a long while. Oh, it's all good. People get busy. People are busy bees, especially nowadays, with a lot of stuff going on. So, I think it's one of the things also I'm trying to do going forward, and this is probably going to start in January. We're going to start archiving the streams as well. So we archive the other games that we play, and also obviously I have all the highlights, the stuff from the War Thunder stuff, but I want to actually archive the whole streams on like a YouTube channel somewhere. So if people do want to go back and watch them for whatever reason, they can do. Because I think it's important to like have everything out, because I know sometimes like I'll say something like, oh well, I said this ages ago, but you know it's not available, so kind of sucks. So yeah, I think that's one thing I'll focus on and get sorted. But I'm glad you enjoy them. Tugnuts, once again, yeah, it's Friday.
It's Friday, Friday. Gotta get down on Friday.
Gotta get ready for the weekend. In the movie The Terminal, they invented a country for the Tom Hanks character, even though it's based on a true story. Yeah, exactly. It's very odd. So then we have Aldo Caruli. Once again, great name. Hey, hello again, Tech. Hope you're doing well. Doing fantastic. Hopefully you're doing good too. Watching your videos this week, I as well got into my War Thunder nostalgia phase and used again the remove 7-0 German fake lineup. How did you do that, TM? That's pretty cool. How do you do that? I like it. I'll just do some torpedoes there. See if we get lucky. And realize that especially the Panther 2 and the Tiger 105 are still extremely fun to play, even in the current meta. As you stated, it's a shame that new people don't have access to this, and since my memory is not that great, so I'm asking you if you recall any instance, excluding the yearly mouse, in which they put some removed vehicles back in the game to grind and buy. If there's none, do you think in the future it will be the case, considering that the gap between old players and new continues to grow? Thank you again, and keep up the good work. Thank you. Oh, I'm dead. So, yes, there was a time where... I'll use a backup here, actually. So, there was a time where they did bring back old stuff. They've done it a few times. Anniversary events, they usually have a look at things. Hey, 996, 997, 991, nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing good. Lovely to see you as always. And doing well. Feeling good. So, like for the 10th anniversary, they brought back all of the old anniversary vehicles. So you could grind out all of them at, you know, different scores. One of the things they used to do as well, which was pretty cool, is they used to use the Warbond shop every once in a while. Back in the day, before the Warbond shop was actually attached to the Battle Pass, so when it was more of a monthly thing instead of a Warbond shop thing, what they used to do, which was pretty cool, is it was either in like January or February. They used to bring back like sometimes a special vehicle. So for example, the KV-1B, you know, the monster that is the German Soviet, you know, machine. That thing was available once in the Warbond shop. You know, they literally they put it in for, I think it was a January or a February, and then also one of the things they did is they brought back the TB3M in the Warbond shop. So these vehicles, which were event vehicles, did come back for a limited time, usually a month or so in the past. And yeah, that was a way that they did it. Thought it was pretty cool. Would love for them to do something similar again. Would love them to go back to the Warbond shop where it's a month instead of 3. But, you know, the one thing we've seen in War Thunder is an expansion of events and a lowering of what you get out of the events, which has been happening for a decent amount of time now. It's not a very positive thing. It's not a very fun thing, but it's an observation. So yeah, that's something they did in the past. I would hope in the future that they reconsider these things, because I think it is important for people to get stuff which they feel like they've earned. And since there's a lot of players who play this event from many years ago, there's also a lot of people who feel hard done by a lot of the new events, which is something that's been happening quite a lot if you've been, seeing the reactions to a lot of different things. Not just like the 4 vehicles instead of the 6, but also stuff such as the the harder the events and the less general usefulness of the vehicles too. So that's one way they brought them back. They also did during the summer event for the IS-7 and also the good old summer event. They had an exchange system. So if you research certain vehicles, you could then exchange them for other ones that had already existed. That was in the game, never came back. There was also the Christmas events, where if you collectively did stuff as a community, you could get like an old premium. That also happened. All of this stuff is many years ago now, though, like 5 years, 6 years ago. So yeah, there was very much a shift in how they deal with things, and it makes me a little bit sad. Hey, Will Parker, nice to see you, man. I finished the ground and naval component of Awakening the Volcano. I find the air component is basically impossible and made a forum post. It's not impossible, it just takes time, because you have to hope for a domination map. And as I said yesterday, you got to remember, like the idea of these things is you do them over 2 months. You don't do them over a day. Like the fact that you've done 2/3 of it in a day should kind of show you like you're on track. Don't go nuts. Like you'll get it done. Like it just takes time. That's the main thing to understand. Not everything can be done in a day. There we go. So we have put lead in your head. Seems like a bad idea. Wouldn't advise. Hey TEC, thanks for reading my comment last week. Some extra follow-up on the Mi-24D. I did learn after the comment that the Italians have one in the tech tree. The Soviet one, which is a premium, was removed from the store in 2019 and was brought back for purchase briefly in late 2022 when Gaijin had a showcase for the helicopter family on their YouTube channel, and is now unavailable. Don't know how much different the Italian and the Soviet Hind D are, but I'd like to have them both. I'm pretty sure they're exactly the same, but obviously, you grind a different tech tree for it, so that's the big bonus of the Soviet one. It's a much better tech tree. I've been on a helicopter high since I stumbled upon his fellow YouTube Heavy D Sparks, who bought himself a Black Hawk helicopter and is one of the few people to privately own the one. Real neat to see the journey unfold. But despite helicopter gameplay in War Thunder to be kind of degenerate from what I see in comments, Gaijin have done a great job in the sound department, especially with helicopters, I think. So I enjoy them. That's all, no questions this week, since long comments suck on phones. Be seeing you. Well, thanks for the comment. It's always nice. The interesting thing about helicopters, the main issues, at least for me, that I have against helicopters is the lack of, for the longest time, it was literally the lack of counters. Like, I don't know how many people were around during the time of like the proper KA-50, KA-52, Mi-28 dominance. Like, I don't mean nowadays where they are very dominant. I mean back in the day when they didn't have realistic missile models, where they had extended range, they didn't get affected by weather. They also, there were certain things that you could do with the game to make it clearer to be able to see things. It was also easier to get into them. There was all of these different things that you could do, and it was crap. Like it was awful to play against. Like it was diabolically bad, right? To a point of disgustingness. And then also, at the same time, it's just the fact, like, there's this belief that the ground mode in War Thunder is taken over by CAS. And a lot of areas right now it is, but that's not because of stuff like helis, that's because of poor spawn point allocation by Gaijin. So this just creates a lot of animosity towards these things because of, the way that Gaijin have set the whole thing up. Nowadays they're not as bad. But I get why people hold a lot of aggression towards stuff like helicopters, because they were such a pain for the longest time. And still a pain, by the way, today. Like, it's not... they're still annoying, they're just not completely broken. For the longest time, the best helicopter in the game was the K-50. It was a pay-to-win vehicle. So, yeah. So we have Type 10. Hey, TEC. War Thunder not getting awarded anything is interesting, even though it deserves one. As a player who's been playing since 2020, I enjoy your content. You're not a creator who screams at the mic. Watch your videos while doing something. Keep it up. Also, Tiger Ammo, go boom. Pop, pop, bang, bang, baby. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing I like about War Thunder, right? There's a metric ton of different content creators, and they all cover different niches, they all cover different things, and I think that's important. When I look at, like, Call of Duty, for example, you have, like, or Fortnite, you have, like, two sets of YouTubers. You have the, wow! And then you have the, oh my god, have you seen this new thing, guys? It's amazing. Wow! And then you just have different variants of those. In War Thunder, because of how the community is, it means that you can have a bunch of different things going on at once, and I think that's super important. I don't like the idea of just doing like the same stuff over and over and over again. So it's actually really nice to see different stuff. It's cool to have like a little niche inside the game. The award stuff just kind of pisses me off, man, and it doesn't really piss me off from like the award show kind of thing. Hey, Sneaky, nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing good. Like, because from the award point of view, like, there's a lot of companies out there which obviously pay for this stuff, but also, if you were, like, sat down, right, and you were doing, like, best ongoing game, there's so many games to pick from. The War Thunder should be in that conversation all the time. But when you have a look at, like, the way that the community itself, like, reacts to these things, like, whenever, like, you know, War Thunder gets nominated for something, like, the video we did the other day, like, looking at people's reactions, like, would you ever vote for War Thunder? Like, if you see, like, the main stuff around it, like, let's say you're just a complete outsider to War Thunder and you're trying to work out what the game's about. So you go to the main, what's the word? You go to the main hub of the game. So you go to the War Thunder itself, you go to the forums, you go to, like, you know, content creators, you go to all of these different areas, right? And the idea is to, like, work out what's going on in the game. So you do that, because what else are you supposed to do? And you see, like, all of this vitriol about how crap, you know, everything is. Like, you can even, if you go and see, like, the award video I did, you can go and read it. Like, it's astonishing. Like, the way that some people go on about the game. So you look at those, and of course you're going to be like, I don't know, man. Like, why would I bother with this? The people who play this game don't enjoy it. So why would I even bother looking into it, you know? It's crazy. Hey, Yoga Boga, nice to see you. I have a question about GE discounts. The website has minus 31% discount, 25,000 GE. Is that normally around of a holiday thing? I think it's all the time, Oga Boga. I don't think... right now there's the Razor Gold thing going on. But no, I'm pretty sure that's like a standard thing that the game does. So that's pretty much how it is. I did vote for Zero. Like, I mean, I voted... Is there a way of checking what you voted for in the Steam Awards? Like, I can tell you guys. Because I did it the other day. So, do I have to, like, go to my profile or something? Just to give you my picks. We can go through it. But yeah, it just kind of sucks at the end of the day. Like, how all this stuff, like, works. It's just, it's very hard to kind of, like, sit down and talk about taking the game seriously and everything when the people who play it themselves, there's just this very, very loud, aggressive set of people who play it but just seem to kind of hate themselves. You can see where you voted for? Where do you see where you voted for? Is it activity? so I can kind of like see what I did. Mm-hmm. Oh, Huron now owns Dark Soul Remastered. There you go. Crazy. Yeah, I think it would be. Would it be in like content? I don't know. But yeah, we'll talk about that when that's through. I remember I took a bunch of Subnautica pictures for thumbnails, which was quite fun. They don't hate War Thunder as much as they hate their lives, but it's not far off. Well, that's the thing. A lot of them are broken human beings. It's just that they're very loud, broken human beings, and it sucks. It really, War Thunder is the classic case of a minority of people just screaming while everybody else just sits there and enjoys everything, you know? There we go. Let's do that. Hey, Surveys, nice to see you. Like the amount of times I've had conversations with people where they've been in very negative places in their life and they've basically been using War Thunder as an outlet to get out aggression, and then hey presto, they solve those things and they have a great time. So weird, right? Is there a way to see it through the actual thing? So I don't really want to sign into Steam on my browser. That's the thing. But yeah, it's. I really wish at some point we could just have a fun and interesting chat about, you know, the game being pretty decent and all that. But yeah, it's just not possible. For me, I just think it's fun reading the comments nowadays. There we go. Oh my god. AJ, shut up, please. There's something about Fridays where he just is not a fan of Fridays. You can go to a game like War Thunder, there should be a banner you can click on. Ah, okay, I'll do that. We're gonna have a look. Right. I don't know what it is about this dog, but as we said, 10 to 2, and he's there, baby. He's ready to go. Oh, there we go. Nominate the games. Right, so these are the ones I went for. So Game of the Year award, I went for Bramble the Mountain King. Played through it early on in the year. What a game, man. 4 to 5 hours. Insanely good experience. Very, very enjoyable. Which was quite nice. VR Game of the Year, I went for I Expect You to Die 3 because I literally haven't played a VR game, so I just clicked a random one. Labor of Love, of course, War Thunder, because I can't think of a better game to actually sit on. The only other one I would probably say is maybe Gates of Hell. Best game on Steam Deck, I gave to Layers of Fear, which I'm guessing is great on Steam Deck, even though I've literally never played on a Steam Deck, but Layers of Fear was very good. The Better with Friends one was We Were Here Expeditions, The Friendship. It's a free standalone game which literally appeared on Steam for free in the We Were Here series. And if you've never played the We Were Here games, they're so fun. Like they're amazing. They really are. Outstanding Visual Style went to Viewfinder. Viewfinder is a game which is once again one we played like a month or two ago. Really enjoyable. Like it's one where you have like a reality that you're around, and then you take pictures of certain things, and then you morph them into the reality you're in. So it's a way of it's like okay, there's a gap here. We take a picture of this. It's a bridge, and you now put the bridge in the gap. Right? It's just wonderful. Most innovative gameplay award, I gave it to The Bunker from Amnesia. The reason why I did that, Layers of Fear is kind of up there, but the problem is a lot of Layers of Fear was literally just playing the same stuff that I played previously. Like it was kind of weird actually. But yeah, Amnesia the Bunker, with the way that of course the monster worked, but also the amount of traps and stuff that they had, and also at the same time the amount of different ways that you could approach a bunch of stuff and kind of like push through it was really cool to me. Like in Amnesia, you always have that kind of thing where you're trying to in all of the Amnesia games, you're looking for backup plans. So what I mean for this is, you know that every so often a monster's going to turn up, and that's bad because you're going to have to deal with them. But you're always looking for like places to hide, areas to, close doors, or, things to kind of distract the monster. In Amnesia the Bunker, they took that idea to the nth level. Like that game was just so enjoyable. I really loved it. Really, really did. That was an amazing game to play through. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. Best game you suck at award, I put Darktide. Darktide is a good game, if you like the standard genre of, 4-player co-op, go around, shoot things, go home after doing stuff. If you like Left 4 Dead 2, if you like, Killing Floor 2, if you like Rock and Stone, all that, you'll enjoy Darktide. The major reason why I suck at Darktide is because I'm so sick of the game not performing very well, so therefore it just annoys me and I don't put time into it. Like, I'm pretty sure I could actually be pretty good at Darktide because I'm usually pretty good at those types of games, like either playing a tank or playing, stuff like that. Like Vermintide 2, I'm pretty good at Vermintide 2. Sank a lot of time into Vermintide 2, and I'm pretty decent at it. But Darktide, I'm finding it very hard to get into because the game just doesn't perform very well on my PC. Then Best Soundtrack Award, Bramble the Mountain King again. Literally has custom music, which is built into it, which they did. Has the best version of Hall of the Mountain King I've ever heard. Here, I'll play you one of the pieces of music, right? Just in the stream. Hopefully this doesn't get copyrighted. If it does, then this part of this part of like the video will be muted probably. But I'll just play you a piece just to kind of show you what I mean. So this is called Blood and Moonlight. As I said, have a look at the soundtrack for Bramble the Mountain King because it's so good. So good. Bloomstatted is also very good as a one. But yeah, here you go. So there you go. That's one of the pieces. You can kind of hear a lot of stuff in there. And also at the same time, like I'm pretty sure the whole soundtrack of Bramble the Mountain King is on YouTube, or it's definitely on Spotify, I know that. So it's definitely worth checking out. But yeah, they have the whole of the Mountain King because, the last every boss fight has its own music and around the world has its own music. It's just really well made. And I think it's on offer the game, but also at the same time it's I'm pretty sure the game it's like 4 hours long and it really just kind of stuck in my head as a really good one. So definitely worth it. Then we have an outstanding story rich game award. I went for Blank. So if you don't know what Blank is, BLANC. It's a co-op game. I don't think you have to play it co-op though. It's available on like PC, Switch, a bunch of different ones. It's a short game, like 2 hours, 3 hours. Basic puzzle game where you are either a fox you're kind of like a dog slash fox thing, or you're a deer, and it's how you're basically both trying to work together to get home. And the world is a grayscale, white black world, and you're trying to work together to see the end. So I think it's pretty important that stuff to try and sort out. So that one was very good. And then the Sit Back and Relax Award. The game is the antidote to a very busy day. It's smooth, relaxing. I left this blank because I'm not a relaxing individual. I just do stuff. So yeah, that was something which didn't really work too well. So yeah, I've kind of just left that one blank for now. I'll have a think about it at the end of the day. Hey Alex, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. So the next one we have Jeremiah. Back from the Cotswolds. Let's see. Happy Friday, Alex. Hopefully you're doing good. So we have Jeremiah Hooson. Lately, I've been playing Britain, trying to get to 10-0, and then stopping because of the lack of amazing top tier. I do think mid-tier for Britain has some fun things. Also, I'm starting to love Naval, and I play Italy Navy, not too meta, but has my favourite looking ships. I mean, fair. Like, it's good to switch it up, not just play the same stuff over and over and over again. Glad you're chilling and relaxing and having a decent time. I think it's important to try different things, have a good time with all of that stuff. We'll do Ronnie Coleman later on. Ronnie does get copyright hit on YouTube, so we can't play Ronnie while recording. But yeah, so I mean, if you're enjoying Italian naval, I would honestly say give a lot of the other naval ones a go too, because Italian naval is pretty rough. Hey, Lucky Strike, nice to see you. Good day, good morrow. Hopefully you're doing good, man. Hopefully life's okay, but it's good. It's nice to see that you're trying different things, you're having a good time. That's important. There's no reason to stick with the same thing over and over again. Nice that you're, going all over the place. I haven't played the Super Ets on Dad, Alex, so I don't know how I feel about it. We'll see in the future. So we have Daniel Rex. Hi, Tech. Hi. When talking about how the Hellcat of the vehicles don't have right rolls, I was thinking about what gadget adds more rolls like light tank, destroyer, heavy tank, destroyer, airborne, scout tank, and the rest. Thanks, Tech, for reading. Having a good day. Hope you understand what I meant. Also, I found a funny screenshot of the floating Churchill bug. Hands down, I'm still dead with that bug that happened. Do you mean like them adding more roles, like, to the game? The basic reason we have roles in War Thunder is either for mechanics or for SP costs. Thank you, Mr. Coron. That's very kind of you, man. I can't overcome the fact that a naval player named itself Seaman Stains. But the thing about like roles in War Thunder, as I said, it's literally just an SP cost thing. So if you're gonna create a new role, which they can do, there's no reason not to. There's kind of got to be a reason for it, and they could do like little differences when it comes to SP cost changes or mechanic changes and stuff like that. I would rather personally see them just figure out what to do with certain ones instead of sit in a world where we don't like have a real difference between like a TD or like a medium tank. Apart from SP cost. There's too many vehicles in the game right now which need a bit of help in terms of either mechanics or just general worth. So I don't think creating more roles does that. But I do like the idea. Well, how about this, right? What would be some examples of roles that you would give vehicles? Like obviously recon, but then recon would just be like the light tank stuff, right? So you just give it like scouting. But what else? What other roles could you even do for the vehicles? It's an interesting thought to kind of go through. Maybe that's something which we could have a think about. Cruiser tank, infantry tank. Good old Britain. So then we have Midnight Teapot, which is a fantastic name, by the way. I think the cult following with regards to the target in game comes from the mighty jingles rather than the history of the vehicles itself. Outside of gaming, the fact that the TOG was a poor concept is well recognized by the few people who cared about such things. Yeah, probably. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff which I know is very popular in War Thunder, or at least seen to be popular because of its popularity in other games. Like one of the big things about a lot of the modern vehicles is if you have a look at a lot of games from like the early 2000s, like when people grew up, a lot of them were around stuff like the Abrams, around stuff like modern tanks. So when the modern tanks started turning up, it hits that nostalgia fact, right? So it's not really a surprise seeing that stuff. So I agree. Like people like Jingles, people like the Tank Museum as well, have very large roles in our areas of the community being more involved in stuff like that and being interested in things like that. So yeah, you're completely right. I definitely agree with that. At the end of the day, no idea what Jingles is doing nowadays. I haven't watched his stuff in many years, but he's probably doing like similar stuff, right? Just chatting about things and having a decent time. So then we have Wayne Evans. Wayne. Reminds me of Owen. Do you know, is it like the Irish or the Welsh? Eoin. One of my favorite authors is Owen Colfer. Or Eoin Colfer, depending on who you want to ask. The mouse was similar to the TOG. It's massively drained resources and would have been immediately bombed by the Allies. Well, I don't think the TOG would have, because they were on the side of the bombing. But I get your point. The major issue with stuff like the TOG is if something broke down, like maintenance, right? But it's also just resources. Like that's the main one. Like, what's the issue? The issue with a lot of things in real life, which are like these mega projects, is just straight up maintenance. Like anybody knows, like anybody who's done like heavy engineering, not just like stuff like bridges, but I mean like those mega quarry machines, like the big trucks or the big cranes and stuff like that. Like the larger you make something, the more issues you're gonna have, not just because of gravity, but also just general pressures and it's gonna create more weaknesses that's going around. It's just a pain to deal with. So that's why when people make like small models of things and then people are like, oh well that should work, right? And it's like, well no, because when you expand this happens. It's kind of like the ant thing, right? So if an ant was human size, it wouldn't work because it wouldn't be able to move because its legs would break because of its weight. And it's an interesting thing to think about at the end of the day. So we have Maxwell. make more enemies by pointing fingers at other CCs, by calling out negative CCs, or CCs that have been doing things that you consider to be bad for the community, like lying and stuff. I know there are enough arguments in War Thunder, but it can never be enough. Like the fire consumes all. Ooh. I want to see people leaking everything there is and being jailed because the CC said dumb stuff. What? I don't think anybody would get. I don't think anybody would get jailed. There's a thing in the partner program now, at least for the Discord stuff, that there are explicit rules that you're not allowed to talk about what happens in the CC Discord stuff. So it's the idea is to create a safe space for people to be able to discuss things. But also it's because in the past a lot of people have used it as ammunition to go after other things. So what this actually means is even though there's a rule against it, there's a ton of people who still leak a bunch of things and also still use it as ammunition against people. They just do it more privately than anything else. It also means people like me, who basically does everything publicly, can't talk about these things because there's rules against it. So pretty much as simple as that. Like at the end of the day, it's very obvious to see, the different types of content that people make and the reason why they make them, whether it is how they feel or whether it is what they look like. But in the past, I have a history of, chatting to these people or about these people or showing examples of these things as they've gone around. It's pretty much as simple as that. I don't really feel like it's a bad thing to do or a wrong thing to do. Usually the way that I see these things is actually more, well, okay, if this idea is out in the open, let's talk about the idea and then go through it. But most of the time that isn't very useful because what you'll find with online debate is like you'll just sit there for, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes and nothing will end up happening and you'll just move on from it. The other thing to also realize is, like, I don't really talk to a lot of people from that world. Like, I think I kind of just keep to my own stuff nowadays because of negative experiences in the past with people who just don't have anything in the world apart from War Thunder. And I realized many years ago now, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, that it wasn't really useful going through any of these things because of the simple fact that like nobody like gains anything from it, right? Like what's the point? Like recently when it came to like the cheating stuff, right? So there was a bunch of players who were banned from there's a bunch of players who were banned from the game. Like there was like 4,000 accounts, and then there was like a few accounts who were involved in the tournament side of things. And one of them, which was involved in a few different teams, who had basically been used as a ringer by these teams. And they got banned from the tournament because he was part of the teams. I don't know how he was a ringer for one of the teams because he was literally a captain of it, but you know how this works. So basically what ended up happening was after I made the video and kind of pointed this stuff out, there was not a metric ton of people, but there was like, I don't know, 20, 30 people who were annoyed at this because I'd pointed this out. Even though it's all publicly available information. And some of these guys are CCs, because if you didn't know, there's a massive crossover between CCs and between the tournament guys, because a lot of people who are over invested into War Thunder are also content creators, because they want to, they want it either to do well, or they want to personally do well, or they have absolutely no other life skills. Some of them are now employed by the company in different ways. So now you have this weird thing, right? So one of the guys who was part of the streams for War Thunder on their official channels, officially working for Gaijin, decided to go after me when it came to the video that I made. So that puts me in a pretty unfortunate spot, because now you actually have somebody who is employed by Gaijin going after me for things that I'm saying, which are all publicly available information. It's just connecting the dots. And also publicly going after me in those areas. So, do I pursue that? Do I bring it up to other people who work with those guys? Or what do I do? What do you do in a situation like that where the power balance is all over the place? Because this is something that happened in Enlisted also about 6 months ago. There was a guy who was added on to the Enlisted team, who was kind of like I suppose like a TEC moderator would probably be the name for it. And then they were added to the CC. Oh no, I don't think they were added to the CC Discord. They were added to some official thing. And then on other public Discords, they started just going after people. And one of the people that they ended up going after was me. And I don't really understand why, but for some reason in Enlisted, there's this like set of people who are just weird and have just decided that there has to be a target on my head and a target on Freeman's head and a few other people's heads, because I don't even know why. Like it just seems odd. Maybe because I don't know. Like maybe because sometimes I just turn around and go, no, I don't actually think that's true. And that's obviously blasphemy when it comes to the internet. But one of the interesting things was one of these guys got hired on. I don't know if hired is the right term because they're technically like a volunteer, right? And then they just started talking about how they were going to raid like the tech hub. They were going after like different moderators. They were going after me. And they were talking about how, basically we should make my life and people's around my life like a living hell. So I would just stop making content about a video game. And these are people who are representing, the company. So I brought this up to one of the company members and was like, hey, what's this? Because, is this really what you want to go? Is this really like the thing you want to deal with? Because I didn't talk about it publicly at the time. I still haven't really talked about it publicly because I'm still waiting for the whole thing to get sorted out. And then what ended up happening was I was told that it was sorted out. The person who hired on the person was talked to, and the person was let go. I was like, oh, that's grand. And then I got an apology from the guy who hired the person. I was like, oh, this is great. What actually happened was they lied to my face. So instead of the person actually getting fired, they removed the account on the forums and also removed the account in the areas where they were going after people, changed the account, and gave the same person on a different account all of the same jobs and all of the same roles. So they lied to my face about what they did. And that was Gaijin employees who are there to be like bridges between Gaijin themselves and content creators. So that's like that's what like some of the interactions over the last year have been with some of like the areas of that Gaijin have expanded into that I've had to deal with on a personal basis. Right? So when you're dealing with that, and you see these things in the background not getting solved, and you see all of these things going on in front of your face, and people who have, some of them who have been employed at the company for 8 to 10 years, straight up lying to my face about what is happening. And then I bring it up to them saying, why are you telling me this when this is true? And then they just straight up ignore it all. Like, what do you do? So I've been trying to deal with stuff privately when it comes to all of this stuff, but none of it actually gets dealt with. So the best thing that I've learned is just to not bother with it and just, you know, realize that there's a lot more to life than any of this, which is very true. And in 5 years, when I'm done with all of this stuff, I'll just release a wonderful set of videos with all of the information that I've gathered over the years on all of these wonderful people. Because why not? Like, if I'm gonna have to deal with a world where I'm treated like a piece of shit and I'm straight up lied to in the face, why the fuck should I care? You know? Like, none of these people can touch whatever I do. Like, when it comes to, like, the online stuff. And, you know, I'm not really bothered if they do or not because I can just go and do other things, you know? So, I don't mind. It doesn't really... It just kind of makes me sad because... One thing I've also learned this year is there are internal powers. You know how we watched that video the other day when it comes to how Gaijin actually works? Where you have like these different groups of people and then they, you know, report to certain people and then, you know, they all get to do like their own independent thing and everything works like that. No, it doesn't. There is definitely a hierarchy of people. There is definitely there is definitely a hierarchy of some people I listen to more and some people are not. Like this idea of everybody's just nice and happy is how it is. But yeah. But now the banning of the guys thing was just one of the other parts of it, right? Where it's just, you know, I mean, if any of you guys are on the tech hub when the people just random people just all decided to turn up at the same time and just, you know, start fucking putting random stuff in chats and pinging me with dossiers of random stuff saying this person is not affiliated with us, he only played with us and he only captained this other team, so he's not affiliated with us. It's like, okay, well, I have like this guy over here, this guy over here who's also in your team saying that, you know, he was suspected of cheating for a long time. I have this guy over here who is part of your team who also like said that there was a bunch of like allegations against that guy, you know, and also the fact that I know all of you guys have known each other for many, many years. Like, for some reason, people just think that they can just talk random shit on the internet and no one's listening. Like, it's just very annoying, you know? There's no stupid bureaucracy. Yeah, no stupid bureaucracy. Just people who get to make all the decisions, and everything else is advisory. But yeah, so that's been some of the stuff I've had to deal with over the last year. Like when it comes to all that stuff. And at the end of the day, as I said, like literally nothing matters when it comes to that stuff because it's just like random like business rubbish. Like when you make stuff online, you're gonna get people who get mad at you. Like I literally made a video today where I was reading through a post and discussing a post from a guy who had cheated and laid out why he cheated. Because on the tech talks there was a guy talking about, well, how can these guys cheat? Like why do they cheat? It makes no sense why they would cheat. Why don't they just do all these other things, or why don't they just play the game? Well, here you go. Here's a video on a guy who literally. Here is a guy who literally has admitted that he's cheated. He's put his username in. He gives you the exact reasons why he cheated, right? And then there are people in the comments going like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you cheated, TEC." What? I wouldn't still be here, would I? Or I can't believe that you're showing these guys all of that stuff. It's like, well, it's just to kind of show you what some of these guys are, you know. And it ain't up to me to like lie about these things or not show you what it is. If anything, it is up to me to show you exactly how a lot of these people work. And they're just fucking crackers. Like here, let's go through. Let's see. I bet you there's some comments from the thing today. So yeah, there's always gonna be people who misinterpret what you do, and some people will take it a pretty far way to do it, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, most people forget about stuff the next day, and the people who actually care about this stuff is so small, the backlash you're going to get doesn't really matter. The problem I have, and I have had over the last year, which is a bit of a problem, is the increasing ties between some of these guys and the actual company themselves. To a point.
Why I cheated in War Thunder.
Why is that so loud? But the fact is now there's a few guys who directly work with Gaijin who have said some absolutely ridiculous things in the past, and even a week or two ago, showing that the allegiances don't lie with the company, they actually lie with other areas. Let's see. This guy thinks there's 10% of people who are cheating. Jesus. Goddamn. Time is something they added in a little while ago. They have a time as a reward variable for the entire time. I've been playing like 3 years. Yeah, but they actually made it. Well, actually, no. It was more like 2 years ago, but yeah, I get it. I thought he was talking about himself. Laughing, crying face. Let's see. He fits perfectly in the R6 community. I like that one. Here we go. Yo, nice content, but I don't like how you're using clickbait lately to get viewers. Keep it real like always. Okay, bro. The title itself is the title of the Reddit post, and it's in quotations. So I don't know what else I can do. Yeah, there was an unsub guy as well. Like, somebody said, I can't believe you're cheating, I'm gonna unsub. And it's like, well, alright, peace, brother. Like, yeah, it's... The calling out of things is important, and it's something that I'll continue to do. But at the same time, the idea of it being valuable or worth it, from a personal point, from my point of view, I think it's very much worth it. But over the years, what I've realized is it isn't really worth it from a community standpoint because people just don't care. Like, it amazes me how much community or companies and just general people can get away with stuff. Like, I was thinking about it today because, like, someone on the Tech Hub in War Thunder General posted a video of XQC because for some reason, like, he's just everywhere for some odd thing. And he was in a guild in World of Warcraft and with the Soda Poppin's guild, if you know who Soda Poppin is. Soda Poppin is in his 30s. XQC is 28, I think, at this point. Okay? There was an altercation between XQC and another guild member on a farming spot in one of the areas of World of Warcraft, where the guy who wasn't XQC was basically stacking mobs and then destroying them with AoE spells, basically meaning that he was leveling the character doing that. And XQC came along and went, hey, give me that. And the guy went, no. And then XQC got annoyed and then left the guild. And then Soda Poppin', who is the head of the guild, had a chat with XQC. And I sat there for 10 minutes while I was editing a video listening to this. Because this was the hot drama of the day. And I just realized halfway through, I'm listening to like a 30 plus man. Okay? A 30 plus man talking to a 28-year-old who are both millionaires, a massive millionaire, or, you know, both are huge millionaires, will never have to worry about money ever, and they are discussing / arguing about how one of them left a guild in a video game because he got annoyed. Like, I can't think of anything more that doesn't matter in the world than that. You know, I can't, and that is like how I see a lot of these things. Where it's like, that's gonna get them like millions of views. There's gonna be a bunch of like, you know, 10 to 40-year-olds who vicariously live through those guys, and they're going to be, you know, they're going to be really, you know, they're gonna get thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views about this thing. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter. Like, it's literally just, I want that farming spot. No, it's mine. Okay, I'm gonna kick up a fuss. Alright. Like, you know, people are getting shelled to death today. Like, I understand, like, doing the whole, like, morally equivalency thing, or, like, you know, depth of issue thing, but come on. Like, it's just so ridiculous. So, yeah. Ninja almost cried because his Discord got leaked by Speed. Oh my god. Well, I also found out that Ninja this month or last month made 150 grand just through Twitch, so I think he's okay too. Apparently you edited the quotation marks for that cheetah vid. Did I? I don't think I did. I'm pretty sure they were there from the beginning. The one interesting thing, which is why I don't like using extra stuff, like I don't really like using exclamation marks or brackets or like the and symbol and stuff, is sometimes certain like social media platforms get pissy and they don't like adding them in, which is kind of annoying. The internet's a funny place, yeah, and real life matters quite a lot, and I think it's important to understand that, at least from my perspective. Like, I think, well, for me, I'm in like an area of my life which I'm, you know, working very hard to be able to get to kind of the next stage. You know, do the family stuff, the housing stuff, you know, all of those different things are now getting to a next level for me. So when it comes to worrying about what people think on the internet about a video game, or especially think about me when it comes to a video game and my opinions of it, I cannot think of something I care less about, just in general, you know. Any tips for getting 3 TD kills without dying? Play rank 3 TDs. SU85 is probably your best bet. Easiest one to go for. So no, I'm not in the mood of, you know, talking about pointless drama stuff. I think out of pretty much all the CCs, I'm one of the most which is vocal about when it comes to critiquing things or supporting things. Like I have no worry about calling out things I think that are wrong or calling out things that are right. It's one of the things I'll always stay true to, but I'm not just gonna start lighting fires because I'm bored, because I'm not. Like life is very fun for me right now, and also I don't think that's the way you actually deal with these things. There are much better ways of dealing with them. So we have Hung. Hi Tech. Hello. Hope you have a nice day. Hopefully I do. So far it's been great, so looking forward to the next stage. May I ask, what is your approach to a vehicle which is kind of bad in the game, but it's your favorite IFE tank in real life? For me, it's the KF-41 Lynx. Its design is so cool and all the APS look dope. But in the game, for me, it's kind of meh. Also, sorry if my English is bad. I'm from Vietnam, so my English is meh at best. No, it's good. You know, I completely understand what you're saying. Basically, what tank do you like in real life, but doesn't perform very well in the game, right? Probably the Chieftain. But the Chieftain's still solid in the game. It's just not, it's not the picturesque vehicle that people think about. So probably that. The other one nowadays is probably the Leclerc. Hey, Aurora, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good today. The Leclerc in game used to be a monster. I actually really like the look of the Leclerc and the auto-loading system and all of that stuff around it. It's one of those which, when I was younger, I saw a lot growing up, which was really cool. I have a really big love for France when it comes to Bastille Day and also their general traditions. France is still incredibly nationalistic in the way that they deal with things, and that means that you get some really cool stuff like Bastille Day parades. My father used to have a house in Châtelain, which was in the northwest. It's in Brittany, which is in the northwest of France, and it meant that I was able to go to the Normandy stuff. I was able to go to Cherbourg. I was able to go to Brest. I was able to go to a lot of areas of historic significance in the north of France, and it just made me very happy. And one of the cool things was we used to go over there in the summer, and in the summer they do Bastille Day. And so what was amazing to me in France is it wasn't just the armed forces that would do the Bastille Day. It was the police, the gendarmerie, it was the local mayor, it was like all of the public officials, it was even like shopkeepers and stuff. Everybody was involved in the march. And my father used to have a house which overlooked the square in Châtelain. And it was just amazing. Watching it from, the windows, seeing all of it as it went around. And it was just so fun. I loved it. So I have a really big place in my heart for French stuff. And also for stuff like the Leclerc. But the Leclerc nowadays is still fine, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. It used to be a powerhouse in War Thunder, but yeah, nowadays it's a little bit more sad. But the Chieftain would definitely be there. Hey Andrew, nice to see you. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you had a good one. Happy Black Friday, I suppose, since it's there. What about Italy and Spanish people? Well, they're great too, They've pretty much, like, I'd say 99% of my experiences with humans has been very positive, which is why whenever people talk about, like, doom and gloom with, like, the human race or how people deal with stuff, I always have a lot of hope and optimism when it comes to humans. I think humans are pretty cool. Like, I think most interactions I've had with humans have been super positive, which is why, I don't like hold any grudges against like countries or people or anything. Like stuff happens and it is how it is. I think reading about Franco is incredibly fun, and also the royal family around that area. But yeah, it's if when it comes to like looking at like groups of people, I'm never gonna be like screw that group of people or because that's not really how my mind works at the end of the day. Like I've seen and witnessed too many people do some really awesome things, whether it's like technologically, whether it's socially, whether it's like any of that stuff. So yeah, You know, the vast majority of people are good. The vast majority of people are kind. And of course, you know, you have all of the good old seven deadly sins and the way that all that stuff works. But yeah, it's still really nice to always interact with people. I don't know. I feel very, 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 very thankful for the online stuff because it's meant that I've been able to kind of meet so many different people from so many different cultures. I mean, I'm literally looking at a comment from somebody from Vietnam while talking to a bunch of Europeans, Asians, and also Americans, North Americans, and South Americans all at the same time. Like when I think about the people that I play games with mostly. So we've got Freeman, who's an Indian living in the Philippines. You've got Alex, which is from Botswana, living in somewhere in South America. You have Rocker, the American. And then you have Tazzy, who's from a different part of America. And then you have, of course, Rex, who's from a different part of there. You have, you know, a bunch of English guys who are involved. You have French Canadians. You have standard Canadians. You know, you have a bunch of different things. It's just wonderful. It's lovely to see. Really nice to be a part of. So we have Uncle Shepherd with a very interesting profile pic. I'll just get my bombs off first. Bonk. I'm just trying to spade this thing out, by the way. Like, it's pretty rough playing this thing, but we're getting there. Need to get the F-111 bomb truck at some point. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Oh, well, that was cool. Thanks, game. Nice to see that bug's... Well, I don't know if it's bug, but that desyncs back where missiles don't appear until they're right on you. Hello, TEC. Greetings from Germany. Hello. In one of your last videos, you mentioned the Swedish Grandwagen, and it would be great getting it in the game. I did some little research before I saw your video, and I would say that we have the Grandwagen somewhat in the game already. Let's continue the thought. The France MX-50 Sublinder looks like what you can find when you look on Google for the Krangwagen. Am I wrong, or would you say we have the Krangwagen in the French tech tree under a different name? Have a good day, TEC, and thanks for the answer. It's all good. Thanks for the question. The issue with the Krangwagen is it's, I suppose, kind of like the Sublinder or the Surbasse on steroids. The AMX-50 Sublinder is what the Krangwagen would have been if it was built. The issue is if you actually have a look at the stats of the Krangwagen, the stats are insane on it. So, for example, one of the things that they were shooting for when it came to the Krangwagen was a 2-second autoloader. So you know how that AMX-50 has a 5-second autoloader, which is already ridiculous for a 120mm gun. Imagine a Krangwagen, right, which had a 2-second autoloader on, I believe the thing that they worked on was a 155mm gun, didn't they, or a 105mm gun? Yeah, sorry, there was two main options which were considered for the armament. So the 120mm caliber rifled L40 or the 150mm caliber smoothbore. Right? So, like, imagine a bigger gun with 2-second reload. That according to the people who were working on the autoloading system for the Krangwagen, you know, the one that was on paper and not actually built, that's what they said could be built. Let's see if I can actually find a diagram for it. Because there were pictures of it. If I can find it. Because they did like the flat one, but then there was actually pictures of the internals. Because it was just completely crazy compared to what you would get from other things. Is it this one? It might be this one. I mean, this kind of looks right. Good old Emils. I feel you, man. My mindset's the same. Peeps are awesome. I'm Hungarian. I'm a designer and was a design teacher. Most of my interactions with Peeps was great if we weren't talking about politics and stuff. After I left the country because the very same reason, since I'm living in Denmark and working as a cleaner, I have a lot of day-to-day positive experiences with people towards me here, and they're doing great things as well. I'm sadly positive about them. Yeah, like you know, the simple fact is a lot of people nowadays get super drawn into politics, and you know, obviously a lot of things are set up in that way to get drawn into it, but if you don't and you just chat about random stuff, you can have a great time. So it's just kind of how it is. Like, it's better just to, you know, relax and enjoy yourself. No need to go crazy on anything. Let's just dodge this. There you go. No Shafrir today. The Shafrir 1 is AIM 9B, pretty much. It's not just an M163, also a Votor. There we go. So yeah, you have all of these crazy things when it comes to the Swedish guys. And the reason why I brought up the Kranvagen is because a lot of people bring it up because the hull was built. And if you know anything about the Kranvagen, you know for a fact, or even just the Emil series in general, the hull is the easy bit. And I suppose building tanks in general, the hull is once again the easy bit. The hard bit is the turret, you know, which is supposed to have these ridiculous amounts of armor. It's supposed to have this ridiculously massive gun with the ridiculous autoloader. Like, it's supposed to have all of these things, right? Like, it's not just supposed to have just, like, one, like, redeeming factor. It's supposed to have all this stuff. So, if you get rid of all of, like, those things, it's just nuts to think about. Alright, where is this picture? Because I do want to show you it. I just don't know where I can find it. I found one of the drawings, but it's not good enough. I want to find the other one. Because it's like kind of a design of like the middle of the belt. To kind of show you what it looks like. Oh, it's not here. God damn it. It's hard to find. So yeah, the major thing is the Kranvagen would just be the MX-50 on steroids. So the idea that they're the same idea, which is very true, but they are not the same in terms of what they create in the game. The AMX is also super fun, by the way. I had a really good time with the AMX-50 Cylinder. It's one of my favorite vehicles in the game, and highly recommend it. The cool thing about the chassis for the Kranvagen as well is they did actually test the auto-loading setup on it for the STRV 103. Weird how that thing doesn't have a 2-second reload. Crazy. How does that work? Surely it should have done. Oh well, I suppose. Right, is this the thing? I mean, it kind of shows it, but not really. Not in a good way. There we go. I found some of the pictures, but I just haven't found the ones that I wanted to find. Because it's kind of cool that there is a lot of information about this thing, even though it wasn't built. But yeah, it's how it is. Imagine the Baduka cannon had a shorter reload and AP rounds, and armor sounds like, yeah, pretty much. And a turret. So 360 turret. Thank you for the subscription, Nicolazed. Thank you for supporting the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. I think if they decided to add in the Kranvag, but also just, you know, give it more realistic stats on it, I'd be fine with it. Like, it's It's just the fact that it is so outrageous in its ideas. Nice to see you cat hunting. Hopefully you're doing good. So we have Insane Robots. And by robot, I mean Robert. Hey Tech, regarding the topic on the red crosses in video games. I know plenty more examples of weird laws that must be followed, otherwise you risk being penalized or sued by some government agency somewhere around the globe. One example is EC 26 in the EU, in which, in more simple words, you can't have sharp edges on the exterior of a vehicle because it can be considered an injury risk, and you get a strict value of how rounded the shape must be to not be considered a sharp edge. Even some tiny decorative plastic parts must follow this rule if it's on the outside of a car. Did you meet up in your work with similar weird laws like this one? P.S. I observed you started calling my nickname a lot lately, which is insane. So, I suppose I have run into a lot of, I wouldn't call them laws, but just like weird specifications. So like if I have to like build something, or if I have to create a model for something, then usually obviously specifications on that thing are pretty important because, you know, they want it built to a certain standard. So more what is kind of the issue with the design is where it's being built and those types of factors. Usually the laws around them is not really my department. So my basic idea is to create... Ooh, can I get past this guy? Yeah. So I do have to take into account all of those things. But for me, it's more of like the foundational stuff and the creation around that. So I don't really worry too much about like minor laws in that way, or things which are just straight up, things that are just straight up just ridiculous. I remember when I used to work a lot on farm stuff when I was a lot younger in the UK. One of the things I learned a lot about, because in the EU, one of the big things was quotas, right? Like quotas for creating food, quotas for, you know, creating consumable stuff for people. Because there was a lot of farmers who were super annoyed about the quota system in the EU, because it's not, the quota system is not, in the EU is not designed for competition. It's designed for survival. Which I know sounds really weird, but it's literally designed in a way so each part of the farming community can get, you know, their kind of things, right? So it's not designed in a way to be fully efficient or fully what you class, I suppose, as like capitalistic. It's supposed to also be sustainable in a way, which is why, you know, the quotas exist in the way that they do. And it was always interesting kind of learning about that stuff, but yeah, weird thoughts for different times. It is when you're a lot smaller, or at least when I was a lot smaller, I should say, when I learned about the fact that you could get punished for overproduction, like you could get punished for doing too well at something, that was a mind-blowing experience for me. I still find that weird to this day, by the way. How you can get straight up punished for doing too well. So we have Nick Robertson. Hey Tech, I have two topics that are closely related, if you'd be so kind as to give your thoughts. Sure, why not? What is your opinion on our predictions on the potential future or lack thereof of PvE content in War Thunder in the game's current format? Can it be monetized effectively by Gaijin? Is expanding on PvE content even a good idea? Is PvE content a significant part of the game's future? I don't think it will be a significant part of the game's future, but it will definitely be expanded upon. Because there are certain mechanics they're going to be adding in which work a lot better in a PvE context than they do in a PvP context. So submarines, carriers, a lot of the naval stuff, right? A lot of the games that people point to which work well with submarines and carriers are PvE focused. A lot of games which people point to where carriers and submarines and missiles and all this stuff don't work well are PvP games. So that should give you an inkling of what they're, looking forward to. Also, at the same time, if you remember, they did some tests last year when it was around like certain kind of PvE scenarios and how they're going to work. So they are going to add more PvE stuff in, but also at the same time, I don't think it's going to be the main thrust of the game. When you have a look at what's being developed for a lot of different games, the PvE areas have been ones which have, been the most productive, but they also have a tendency to kill the PvP areas. I don't think Watford should really be worried about that, just because of kind of the size of the game, and also at the same time, the fact that you can always balance it by rewards, right? And also a lot of the game modes themselves have a lot of PvE elements, so that isn't too much of a worry in my opinion. Like, I think what they'll do is they'll actually just expand more of the PvE stuff in PvP battles. So not in ground, because I've tried that before, it didn't work. In naval, you already have PvE stuff because you have AI naval vehicles on both sides of the equation. And then in air, like I know people always joke about the fact that like nothing ever changes and every mission feels the same. Blah, 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 blah. It's not true. It never has been true. And a lot of realistic stuff went through massive changes like 1 or 2 years ago. And even in like the last year, they've gone through massive changes with the expansion of maps and also the way that EC is working. So I think it is more likely we get more changes like that. So where they change like maps that I'm on here in the Canberra instead of, just standard different PV modes. I think we'll get like random single missions here and there, which we can like try out and then maybe go in different ways. But I don't think it's something that they're heavily going to go into because, in the game there's much nicer things to focus on and much nicer things to play on. If they wanted that, they would try, different stuff and, probably create a new game around it. If you want to also see something that, I don't know if it's out yet, but it's something to consider, it's, of course, that VR game that they made. What is that missile? That VR game that they've made for PlayStation. Maybe it is out, maybe it isn't out. I got no idea. But they made a VR game which is pretty much like, you buy a bunch of vehicles, or you buy the game and it just gives you a bunch of vehicles. Like, there's no real, like, research to the game in that way. And then you just do it in, like, PlayStation VR. Like, that's a thing. And that's been out. Well, actually, no, I don't know if it's out because I don't follow it, but I just remember there was an announcement for it. So you may see like more AI stuff in that way in like Splinter games instead of, other areas. So number 2, assuming Gaijin has plans for the expansion of PvE content in War Thunder, how do they proceed to implement and expand such content without falling into the same pit as Armored Warfare, where the PvE essentially smothered PvP, inevitably to the game's detriment? How do the developers strike a balance of making PvE rewarding enough to warrant a player's time and attention without severely disrupting the incentive structures that currently exist in War Thunder? P.S. This thought just occurred to me, but do you think Gaijin is conscious of what happened in Armored Warfare and is potentially hesitant to expand PvE for that reason? I know the Gaijin team look at a lot of other video games, because, why wouldn't you? And also just by chatting to some of them. I remember a few years ago, one of the big reasons why a lot of the environmental effects came in. You remember when they like did the changes to the landscape, the clouds, all that stuff? It was because Microsoft Flight Sim came out, and they looked at it and were like, "Holy crap! Like, look, have you seen this? How'd they do this? Can we do this?" Like, and that's the great thing about industries and stuff, right? You see somebody else doing it, and then you're like, "Ooh, can I do that?" Like that to me is really cool, right? And so they're obviously cognizant of other games and how they all work. If they're not, then they're doing something wrong. It's always good to keep tabs on competition and see what everybody else is doing. I would honestly say the way to implement it is through expansions. If you're gonna do something like this, you know how they've done like the loot box stuff and the esports stuff, where everything is based around RNG and everything is based around this idea of, you're not necessarily going to get the thing that you want, so we're gonna artificially increase the price of things. So by, making it so you unlock the wrong things because you don't actually get the stuff that you want. I think they have to do the opposite way. When I think about PvE content, I don't think about Zoomers. I don't think about young people playing it. What I think about is older people who have played a lot of these games in the past and kind of want a similar experience. So I honestly think the way that you do this stuff is through campaigns. So you create, let's say, 5 to 10 missions, kind of like what they did with the historical campaigns. Get like a person in to do some dialogue stuff, make a few like videos around it. Doesn't have to be too crazy, like Gates of Hell has like these really cool little intro videos for every mission. Just something like that, nothing to really like break the bank or anything. Just a few animated pictures of the areas where you're fighting, and then also the way that people feel, or just general like ways that people would go from that point. So yeah, just do like stuff like that, and then also at the same time, what you could add is some other little things around the place, and you just make missions which are very similar to ones from like 10, 15, 20 years ago. You sell them at whatever price they're supposed to be sold at. You can work that out through many different things. And if you complete the missions, you don't get any RP for anything. You get some unique historical camos. You get a profile picture. You get a title. You don't get anything which is, crazy, in terms of like value. You don't get like a vehicle, or maybe you could get a vehicle out of it, but it's just a copy of another vehicle which is already in the game. So you get like one with a special skin, and it's just like an event vehicle, right? That's something at least that I would look into and think about and kind of just go from there. I don't think it would be better to set it up in any other way. If you set it up so it's a mode where you can grind out everything, well, we already have those modes. Like, they're already there when it comes to War Thunder. And also with the way that they've set up the way that they've tackled the bots when it comes to the game. If they then create a mode which basically, scripting and botting guys benefit from, then they're just all going to come back again in a bigger wave. So why would you ever want to do that? So for me, you sell them as little packs, kind of like the starter packs, at whatever price is right. You give people access to the first mission for free, and then if they complete that mission, or even if they don't, you can buy the pack. You get like 5 to 10 missions. They could even be created by community members in the pre-existing areas. There's some community members who've made some really cool missions back in the day, and if you complete those, then you get like a special vehicle, or you get like a special camo. Nothing too crazy, just something like that. Don't need to go too hard on the paint, Hey, Abby, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully life's alright. Yeah, we're doing base bombing and dealing with trying to stay alive and doing this stuff. Keep buggering on. I like that. Keep buggering on. Alright. Oh, just trying to... Imagine trying to stay alive from a Votour of all things. So we have Kiwi Flyer, currently grinding out the Chinese tree. What is the best aircraft of each rank up to rank 3? Also 3,600 hours and not a top tier yet, mainly because I'm bad and play many nations. I mean, as long as you're having fun, I saw this a lot in those comments I was looking through when it came to the labor of love thing. I saw a lot of people which were super focused on like, I'm not a top tier yet. So what? That's not really, you know, where you're trying to where the enjoyment of the game is. It might be a goal at the end of it, but there's tons of other areas to enjoy. Why not give those a go, you know? It's very odd to read about. In terms of the Chinese tree, the aviation tree is incredibly boring. Yeah, it's been good, Alex. Overall, it's been alright. Been nice to go through. If I can't remember any of the vehicles that's actually in it. So here, I'll just check real quick on the wiki. Because I just remember a lot of it's copy-paste. I have a question for you this time. Do you have a favorite ERB? To be fair, I doubt you have listened to a ton. I don't even know what that means. What is an ERB, Abby? Remember, I'm old. Right, let's see. China. Little Chinese aviation. So the first rank of China, CW21, by far. CW21 is insanely powerful, even after all of its nerfs. I think it got 1 nerf and 2 BR raises. Still crazy aircraft. Good guns, not a lot of survivability, but very good flight performance. Rank 2 is the P40, definitely. Stable, works well in each game mode. No messing with the thing, everything works well on it, and the rest of rank 2 is pretty poor. And then rank 3, I mean, there's not a lot to choose from there. I'd probably go for the P38, but the Key 61 Otsu is quite nice too. They're very different in how they work. The Key 61 Otsu or the Key 44-2 are definitely the ones to pick up, but I'd probably go with Key 61 just because I prefer the playstyle slightly better than the Key 44. Key 44 feels very similar to the Key 61, just not as maneuverable, but more engine power. So yeah, so CW21, P40, Key 44, or Key 61. That's what I go for. Simple as. Then the next question. God damn, Zero, that's nuts. Epic Rap Battle of History? Oh. No, I listened to some of those back in the day. I haven't listened to one in ages, though. I honestly think, Abby, if I listen to old ones, I'm going to find them super cringy. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like that stuff probably hasn't aged very well. But they still make them, right? Yeah, I feel like that's one of those parts of YouTube history which is probably aged really badly. Let's see. I have absolutely no idea. I definitely, maybe the Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates one, maybe that's the way to go. But yeah, I would have to listen to them all again. I just remember them being kind of cringy, like even back then. So nowadays, with my old, like, you know, where I am now, I'd probably just listen to them and just be like, you know. Oh, good. And we have a well with you, Valbega. Hello, Tech. Hope your week went well. Yeah, pretty good. Not too bad. Oh, and I hope your sanity is now. That's all I want for Christmas is you. Will be overplayed in every mall, and Beppis Coke ads, good old Beppis, will remind you that you have to buy one or the other to save the world. Probably. That is one of the great things about malls dying out. Basically, I don't have to listen to that stuff anymore. And also, like when it comes to like supermarkets and stuff like that, I always usually have headphones in anyway. Like I don't know, I don't need to listen to random stuff that's being forced into my ears. Seeing how we're going to have more imported lease captured vehicles, I believe adding a little more flavor to them would be refreshing to see. There are plenty of ways to accomplish this, but let's say in a future where Gaijin dealt with the big problems and have free time, they could add localized vehicle names. Oh. By this, I don't mean localized based on the language you use, but instead of the language of the tree of the vehicle is in, or country or origin if there is no subtree. For example, they do the research and find out the Italian Panzer III was called something along the lines of VCC3. Veicolo de Combattimento Cruzzato 3, aka the literal translation, or CA3. Oh, wait, it's trauma bombs. And pink. I think they kind of do that, don't they? Like with localization and stuff. Anyways, hope you have a refreshing week together with the fam. P.S. I can't believe another year is almost over. This year flew. This year was incredibly quick. And I'm fine with that. Like, because, you know, there's a lot of things that I'm working on right now, which are more down to time than they are down to anything else. And more months that go past, better certain things become when it comes to like, the personal stuff. But I feel like, at least with the other stuff, don't they already do the localization things? Or am I just nuts? Like, I feel like that stuff's already done in it. Like the TE5. Right? But they could definitely expand upon it, you know, do some cool stuff like that. If they're not already, give them a little bit of spice. You know, obviously they can do camos, they can do decals, they can do, you know, little changes to them. But yeah, anything to make them a little bit newer or different compared to the other one is the way to go. Stuff like the Bishma, right? Give it a spade, go crazy. Yeah. Like, stuff like that is definitely the way to go. So then we have Thorben. Thorben Vandiest. Hey, Tech. Hi. Do you ace all your vehicles? Thanks. Keep up the good work. No, I don't. I spade them all. Or tried to. So you can see, you know, got some spaded here. But, no, I don't ace them. Right, so there's like two factors, right? First one is I don't usually play a lot of vehicles for a crazy long time because when I spade a vehicle or fully modify it, I'm usually done with it. So if I put, like, for example, the M109s, most of the M109s, I've put in like 20, 30, 40 games to spade them. Like, not a lot of games. And if I expert them, like that's a decent amount of SL down the drain, and I'm never really going to use them again, unless like the page of history stuff turns up. So I don't really need that like added +3 bonus on all my crew skills for like those 20 games, because you know I feel like I'm good enough to be able to sort it out. Like so, for example, the M109, where is it? M109A1, 20 battles, 47 kills, 16 deaths. So that was to spade the American M109A1. So am I going to expert a vehicle for 20 battles? No. If it's a vehicle that I use a lot in events, so SKR7, T34 for America, a few planes of the high echelons, you know, that I enjoy, SB2C, you know, things like that. Yeah, sure. Because I'll use them more than I do. The other factor, I do expert all of my naval vehicles because there was a time 3 or 4 years ago where I just got absolutely bored with the idea of all of my shells just missing consistently. Like there was a time in naval where, and it probably still is with certain vehicles, the dispersion on the guns is incredibly bad. So if you don't like expert your crews and make the guns more accurate and increase the reload, you can just be sat there for 10s, 20, 30 minutes just not hitting anything. So any blue water vessel, I do expert the crew, but that's just because of annoyance with dealing with it before it. And also it takes me a little bit longer usually to spade a lot of those things. So kind of going from there. I would say that it's the other factor as well is I don't like experting my crews because when I'm trying to work out how good a vehicle is or how bad a vehicle is, I don't think the average player experts all of their crews. Like I don't think that's something that they do. I might be wrong. Like maybe that's why there's a ton of people who have a huge like SL issues in the game. But I don't think it's the case that has happened. So because that is like that, I want to try and get an experience which is as close as possible to the average player's experience. So what I need to do is I need to try and put myself in those shoes and create something which is as close as I can. And one of the ways I do that is to not expert all my crews. And let's say everybody is experting their crews, then I'm actually playing a lot of these vehicles a lot lower, like in efficiency technically, than most people are playing them. So it will actually be a little bit more of a challenge for me to do that. But at the same time, it also means that because my level on playing all of these vehicles is not experting the crews, it is all the same across the board. So if I keep that up, then no vehicle is going to benefit more than others when I'm thinking about it or have it in my head. Hey Maf, nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing good. We're just doing the tech talk. Hopefully you're having a good Friday. Happy Black Friday. Then we have Keratomas. I'm pretty sure a lot of people play War Thunder over World of Tanks or Warships is because it's got real vehicles, and even the couple which are project were at least partially made instead of full of fake bullshit in the wargaming games. I think it would be a huge blow to the game. I mean, you can say that. There's absolutely no data on whether people would stop playing War Thunder overnight if they added a bunch of project or paper stuff. We have paper stuff in the game. We have quite a lot of paper stuff in the game. If you wanna class it as paper, right? We obviously have the standard examples we talked about, but high tier ground. Pretty much all high tier ground is paper because we don't know the actual values. So it's just one of those things that which I hear about a lot, but it's hard to comment on because there's just no statistical data on either side. So all we can go on is personal opinions, personal experiences, and personal beliefs. And I don't know, like those ideas and those thoughts we can talk about until the cows come home, but what's the point? The major thing I prefer War Thunder over compared to World of Tanks is the combined arms aspect, and also there's a lot less. There is a lot of people talk about the pay to win stuff in War Thunder, like when it comes to premiums and things like that. In World of Tanks, every vehicle has pay to win elements. The fact that you have you don't as much anymore, but back in the day you had gold ammo, gold consumables, you have the loot crate crap like at Christmases. You have all of these mechanics which I really, really disagree with. And the thing about the wargaming stuff is also the way that you research vehicles, where you have to play the one before it, or you have to grind free XP and then convert it with gold, which is the same system as War Thunder, but for some reason it's not seen as a bad thing. And yeah, it's just there's a lot of things in wargaming games which really I don't like. When it comes to like the monetization aspect of it, and I just don't think it's good. Don't think it's positive as a general gaming thing. My incendiary just didn't do anything there. That's really weird. What an odd situation. Well, yeah, the other thing about the wargaming games is the RNG to like the shooting. That would drive me nuts. Like there is, if you didn't know, there is RNG in War Thunder when it comes to shooting stuff. Like there is quite a lot of RNG actually, but you can't see it. So it makes it a lot nicer. The other RNG thing as well is the amount of damage you do to a enemy in wargaming games. In War Thunder, the only RNG element is the vitality on the crew, which, can be controlled by a player. So we have Tritz. How long will it take Gaijin to fix the Challenger 2, particularly the TES? There are a lot of posts on the forums explaining how they could without using classified documents, but I haven't seen Gaijin address this. What would you like them to say? Pretty much all unclassified stuff when it comes to armor works like this. The vehicle can withstand this type of round, or the vehicle has a maximum effectiveness against this type of munition. When it comes to actually plugging in real values on something, both of those are completely useless, because it doesn't tell you the general range of the thing, it only gives you one variable. And if you've ever done any analysis or any experimentation or anything scientific, if you only have one variable on a system, when there's like hundreds of variables which are actually involved, but you only know one of them, it's completely worthless. Right? And that's something that happens with these discussions. If I give you a newspaper article which says the Challenger in its upper glacis, or the Challenger hull can withstand a DM-53 APFS DS round. Right? Let's just say I do that. Does that mean the whole hull? Does that mean the side of the hull? Lower glacis, upper glacis. Does that mean the back of the hull? Does that mean the composite armor can stop that? Does that mean with the Dorchester package on top of it as well? Does that mean the this just standard armor which is there? Like what does it mean? It's just one variable out of all of these other ones which, have to be considered but can't be considered because you don't know. If I say a vehicle, right? A vehicle is able to withstand a 12.7 millimeter Dishka round. Okay? Does that mean the whole of the vehicle? Okay. Let's say it does. Which round from the Dishka? Are we talking AP? Are we talking HE? Maybe a bit of APDF? I don't even know if it can fire that. What about APCR? What about heat? Or whatever other round you can stick in that barrel, right? So it is a problem that we have when it comes to War Thunder in these discussions. And I can guarantee that when it comes to these things, if I look at any of these posts, I'll be able to point out all of the reasons why Gaijin hasn't accepted them. And it will be because of those factors. It happens with every high-tier vehicle. Okay? And it just sucks. The whole thing really sucks. The whole conversations around it since 2017, since 2018, have sucked. And they haven't moved an inch, by the way. Because every time you talk about it to one person, it's like a Medusa. You like chop off one of the heads because you chat to one person about it, and then what ends up happening is 10 other people just spawn out of nowhere, and because they've seen a post somewhere on the internet, they say the same thing. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. But it just is how it is, you know? There's nothing you can really do about it. It's just how it is. There's nothing too much else that you can do. So yeah. Want M2HB? Well, yeah, you could do the same thing with M2HB, right? It was just an example, you know? Has there been a nation that you guys have played that have got night battles off the nation? Well, not for me, you know. So we have the pen man with the turkey with the fish head, or the chicken with the fish head. A classic online picture. Hello again, TEC. Hi. I do apologize for making you read out my extremely long-winded comments, and if it came off as me being a self-centered prick, I always forget to think about the bigger picture. Anyways, thank you for answering my question and giving me your view on things. Much love from Scotland. I don't think if people write long things, it makes them self-centered. A lot of people have said that I make long videos online because of various different reasons, and usually the reason why things are a little bit more longer or articulated is because you want to make sure there's no holes in whatever you're talking about. Like it's always been funny over the years because I always think about like when I was at university and I think about lectures, right? So some of my lectures were an hour and a half long, and the amount of material covered was completely nuts. But then also, I remember, I think it was in my second year, I did some spring courses, and one of them was astronomy. And it was like beginner's astronomy. And it was just about the general universe, how it all worked. It was actually really fun. And it was one of my option courses. The lectures were 3 hours long. So 3 hours with a 5-minute break in the middle, and all about space and calculations around space, how things are seen, what does this mean, what does that mean, right? And then I look at people complaining about a 20-minute video about, I don't know, a fundamental part of a video game, and they're like, why is this so long? You could have said this stuff in a minute. I would love for you to go to like the lectures or the lecture series that I had to go to and tell them that. The lecturers would have turned up with a bat and just murdered you. Because it is about the fact of not just teaching you about the thing to exist, it's about to help you understand why it's there in the first place, right? Which is like one of the huge things that's important. Like, understanding the central point of something is useless. Understanding how the mechanism got to that point and the foundation that built that mechanism, that's the useful thing. And that's how, like, trying to talk about things, even when it comes to a video game, it can kind of break down, because you find out a lot of people either don't think about it in that way or don't care about it. So never apologize for long-winded stuff. Sometimes I will skip like certain things of speaking through something, but it's not because I'm not interested, it's because I got, the point that you were pushing through, and I feel like people can read the other stuff on the screen for them. So for me, like it's when like it clicks in my head that okay, so this is the thing that's going through. This is the thoughts around it. It's not there's nothing about it being like self-centered or whatever. It's one thing about like saving my voice, because we do these things for a long period of time, and also the other thing is, it's about just making sure to like talk about, for me, the core. TEC, I've studied biology for 7 years, almost finished my PhD, but I remember in an undergrad lecture, the lecturer referred to a tree as Woody. Fantastic. my favorite lecturer I had was it was in my second semester at university, and it was organic chemistry. Now, in the first and like second year of my university, like I don't know if it's just like how the Canadian system works, or if it's kind of like I think it is how the Canadian system works, because so technically you have like prerequisites, right? So you need to have done certain things to get into certain courses. But a lot of the ways that prereqs worked at the universities was you could do these kind of like beginner courses in the first year or the second year to kind of learn like all the stuff that you should have learned at high school, probably. Because you could do like courses which, you know, you just hadn't touched any, like you could do chemistry courses that you hadn't done chemistry for like 6 years. It was so weird. Yeah, I think it did 996. So what ended up happening is a lot of the time, a lot of the early courses were just like fundamental courses. So for example, first year organic chemistry was just like stuff I learned when I was like 14, 15. So it was more of like a refresher to make sure I remember all of this stuff and like kind of, you know, go through it like that. But it was hilarious because I had this lecturer who was he'd spent like 20 or 30 years in Canada, but he was from Wolverhampton. In He was from Wolverhampton in England. Now, if you don't know like people from Wolverhampton, like they have a very thick like accent. So imagine like a Wolverhampton accent mixed with a Canadian accent. It was so funny to listen to. And since for me, like I'd done a lot of this stuff before, I could just kind of like hear like what he talked about and not really focus too much about it and just kind of read it in the book because, you know, it didn't really matter about that stuff, but it was fun. I have a master's in chemistry 996, not in physics. I did a foundation year. First, as the school system is pretty bad in the UK. I was the year they banned coursework, yet unis have lots of coursework. Yeah, I did my master's in so right. Basically, the way that it has always worked for me, I'm very good at physics. I don't know why. I kind of just you know how they talk about that idea where you can kind of like picture stuff in your mind, and some people can like just picture stuff and how systems work and how everything flows. For some reason, I can like do that with a lot of things. Whether it's like the universe stuff or whether it's standard like fluid systems or things like that, I can get a general picture of how it's supposed to all connect together in my head, which I don't know why. Like it's just kind of how it is. And I mean it's sometimes it doesn't really come out that much because I try and do like everything when it comes to streaming and like doing the content stuff. I try and make that as different to like my standard work stuff as possible. But when we play like the We Were Here games, right? So in the We Were Here games, that shit comes out a lot. Like I remember those in one of the We Were Here games where we played with Freeman. There was a set of pipes with valves on his side and a set of pipes on my side with valves too. And basically we had to communicate between us to make sure certain, fluids were flowing in certain ways and not others. And the way that we figured it out was basically Freeman described to me exactly what his side looked like, and I obviously knew what my side looked like, and then I married them together, and I basically told him what to do. Now, the problem with doing it with Freeman is I can tell him exactly what to do and then say to him, hey, have you done this? And he'll say yes, but he's just lied to my face because he hasn't actually understood what the hell I've said. So, so it adds that factor of like, well, why is this not working? Like, what's going on? And it turns out he's just started pressing buttons everywhere. But but the way that I see things is like that. But the funny thing is, I can't do that with art. I can't do that with any of those like types of things. I can do it with engineering. I can do it with the way that things are built and all of the different functions that they have, like architectural stuff, but mainly like the way that a system is set up in terms of its like the way that all the electronics are set up in it. I can do it like the way that all the plumbing is set up in something. Like I can map all that out in my head and how it's all going to fit, right? And what flows where and where you want everything set up. I can't do it with art. I can't see the building blocks of different pieces of art. It just doesn't work in my head. And what's very odd is my sisters really struggle with the art side of things. They really struggle with the engineering side of things, but they have it down when it comes to the art side of things, right? So it's just completely different the way that we both approach things, even though we're from like the same, two people. It's really weird. Don't really understand how it all works, but it is how it is. But no, never apologize. Just write what you want. Ooh. I started a master's degree in motorsport engineering. 2 years in, I realized I'm not smart enough for that. It can be a bit of a pain doing all that stuff, man. I get why people get annoyed at it. It's not for everybody. The reason I did it is to basically assure I got the job that I did. But I did not enjoy doing my masters. I did not enjoy doing anything like that. I was, by that point, I was sick of doing school stuff. I vowed to never go back to a university. A university for me now is just a collection of people. Like, the people who work at universities or, like, do that stuff are just people who can't survive in the private sector. So we have MJ. Hey, Tech. A few days ago, you made a video about bringing back old German vehicles that were removed. I think the easiest one to bring back is the Panther II, but maybe not in the same armament as before. As you know, the hull of the Panther II is on display currently in a military museum in the US, with the turret of the Panther G used as a placeholder. This configuration of the Panther II can be brought back into the game. It can have a BR-63, not any higher, since it's basically an up-armored Panther with the same firepower as the other ones. I mean, yeah, they could, but what's the point? Like, I'm being brutally honest. Like, what? So the idea is to remove a vehicle that people have already ground out. So the Panther II. So you'd have to fundamentally change what that is, pissing off all of the people who ground it out in the first place. Or you just add a vehicle to the tech tree, which is called the Panther II, which has elements of it which did exist, but were never actually formed or put together. So now you have two Panther IIs. And the big reason why you want to bring back the old Panther II and you want to bring back the Tiger II 105 is because there's a glaring hole in the tech tree there for Germany. Because, they moved a bunch of vehicles around. And the replacements that they brought in didn't suit or didn't actually fix those holes. So by bringing in that Panther II with whatever the Panther II you want, you don't fix the hole. You just add another vehicle to the tree. The issue is you want to fix the hole. Hey Carter, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing alright today. Giving something and then taking it away is the worst thing you can do. Try it in real life and see what happens. Well, yeah, that's true. So yeah, so if you changed or altered, the vehicle from the people who ground it out beforehand, you are basically pissing off the veteran player base that still plays, which is a really bad idea. If you decide to add in another vehicle, which is just the chassis with the other gun on it, or the other thing on it, the other turret, it doesn't actually solve the problem which was caused by removing those vehicles. Which is you don't have a 7-0 lineup now, or really a 7-3 one, because all of those 7-3s got bumped to 8-0 or 7-7. So now, basically, in the German tech tree, you now have the exact same scenario, which caused them to nearly move the M48 down to 6-7. Because you have a 2BR gap where there's hardly anything there. But if you brought back those 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles, then it would fix it. But if you introduce another vehicle, like the one that, you know, you're putting through with, it doesn't fix it. It just adds another vehicle, which you suppose you could add anyway. That's the problem with those two. Like, if you have a look at... let's see, where is it? So for Germany right now, right? So let's just have a look at realistic. So you got the 6-7 lineup, right? Tiger 2H, Bulldog, Ferdinand, Jagdtiger. 7-0, you've got Kugelblitz. Then 7-7, 7-3, okay, you got a Weasel. That's it. So at 7-0, you have 1 AA. At 7-3, you have 1 AA, basically. And then at 7-7, you have the M48, then these 2. Then at 8-0, you have all of these vehicles. There's a huge hole here. And adding in a 6-3 random Panther doesn't fix it. You've just bolstered these guys, which is fine. Like, that's also good, so add it in. But you need to find a solution for this. There are 2 BR brackets in the German tree right now where there's just nothing there. You know? Hey, Beaches, nice to see you. Hopefully you can find them again. So yeah, that's the issue, right? If I buy bushes for war bonds, will I have enough for the Frank Knox? I don't know the maximum amount of war bonds you can get. I would probably be able to, but obviously I don't know for somebody else. It depends how much you brought into it. Also, I should really purchase this because I kind of forgot it existed. How many special tests do I have, actually? Oh, Dry Bush Type B, disgraceful. Sad. I have 18, okay. So we're nearly halfway on the battle pass thing for that. Aiming for 50 special tasks isn't too bad. So yeah, you could add it in, but it doesn't solve bringing back those vehicles, you know? So we have SD Bakov. Let's see. ATK Cry, nice to see you. Yeah, that can be an issue. Anything on the A7D being brought down in BR? It's seriously been overtaken at 10.3 with the intro of F111. The A7D has a real problem on its hand, and it's the same issue that the SU-25T and all of those other things have. The armaments that this thing gets access to are crazy powerful compared to the actual, you know, the actual general use of the vehicle. So it's always going to be in a pretty awful place. Like, it has the massive TV-guided bombs. It has the Mavericks. Like, even though it is the weak Mavericks, they're still Mavericks. And then obviously you have the AIM-9Js too. It sucks, man. The A7s are in horrific places. If they decided to make it so those vehicles were lower in air realistic and higher in ground realistic, it would be completely fine. But yeah, it's... I mean, the Harrier GR1 has kind of the same issue as well with its munitions. Harrier GR7, as Mick says. There's so many of these vehicles now which are really unbalanced because they don't have a balanced set of factors across the board. They just have a bunch of different things which are a bit rough. No, you haven't, 996. We haven't done him yet. I can't do Friday God while we do the tech talk because it will get copyrighted. So, yeah, simple as. Get to level 125 and you'll get more than 8,000 war bonds. Well, there you go. Easy. So you can get the Frank Knox and the other thing. So we have Carter. Let's see. Carter the Grand. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Hello, hello, hello. Heidi, hey. It's reminds me of Heidi High. You guys probably don't know what Heidi High is. Heidi High. Heidi ho. Heidi High was a sitcom. From a long time ago, way before I was born. And by a long time ago, I'm in the 80s, so I apologize to anybody who I've offended. But basically, there it is. Good old Heidi High. It's comic goings-on in this series set in an English holiday camp called Mapland. The title comes from the camp's greeting, which the staff are meant to say with enthusiasm. But all too often, the camp guests are the last thing on their minds. Ted's the camp comic, but is always on the lookout for ways to make money. Gladys has her eye on the boss, and Peggy wants to swap her mop and cleaner's outfit for a yellow coat. Whatever that means. Kind of reminds me of the Carry On films. Carry On films are great. Yeah, Mr. Hanky as well. Mr. Hanky the Christmas poop. Anyway, thoughts on hash browns? Hash browns are grand. Big fan. Sometimes I like making hash browns myself because I think one of the big issues with hash browns is a lot of people put way too much oil when they make them. Whoa. They use way too much oil when they make them. So it just creates this, like, you basically just taste oil and nothing else. And sometimes, people put way too much, basically other stuff apart from potatoes in it. And that just sucks. So for me, it's very important to focus on the potatoes and realize that, as usual, these types of things are great foundations for other stuff. Poutine, for example, is another one of these things, right? Poutine is great as a foundation for other stuff. It isn't great as a meal in itself, but hash browns are a great foundation for different things. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Let's just try and get away from this area. Heidi, hi. There we go. Personally, I think that shit slaps harder than an F-150 slamming into a small human at 57.86 miles per hour. On another note, my Shalom boys are suffering. The US Chaparral now has a smokeless motor with the first unlockable missile, but still sits at 9.3. Not to even mention the Tam-Sam being a 10.0 with the new fancy optical stuff. Here's hoping for the C-round truck for the 12 people who play Israel. P.S. I've received a new monitor. Even the mighty 4090 can't run War Thunder at 144 FPS at 4K with matched graphics, but with DLSS, it clears the 144 by far. Well, that's good. I need to get myself a 2K. I think it's 2K time. Need to get myself that 2K goodness around the place, just so I can get it all sorted. I think it's next year when I think about like the upgrades that I'm gonna do, because I always try and do in January. I kind of like sit down and work out what I want to like upgrade for the year, and I put down a budget, do all that stuff. I try my best to try and make all of this stuff like as official as possible, with budgeting and, if this amount, take a percentage, invest it back, and then the rest goes to taxes and savings and stuff. So the big upgrade I think I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm getting somebody to look after all of the ancillary stuff. So like the second channel, the shorts, all that stuff, all those are going to come back. And, the second channel is all scheduled and everything, but I mean, like, the stuff that needs to be scheduled will be scheduled. So all of that stuff is going to come back. All of that extra setup should be quite nice. So hopefully it will, hopefully it will all be running and cooking with gas. And then the other thing is a better monitor. I use like 3 1080s and they all work really well, but I feel like now is probably a time to improve that. It's always good to improve and make things a bit better. We then have Ranger Brutus. The devs seem to have an axe to grind with Italy or something, because the Ariete has better composite armor in the turret in real life than the thing in game. And the tank has composite armor in the hull, but the devs refuse to add it, saying there's no evidence to show it does. Meanwhile, the Ariete's manufacturing statements and doctrines full on say that the Ariete tank, yada 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 yada. Just let the devs know I don't care. I just don't care, man. We talked about this before. I don't care. I don't care about any of these top tier vehicles when it comes to their armor. All of it cannot be proven. Blah 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 statements. Blah blah blah. BAE Systems. Blah blah blah. Otto Melara. Blah blah blah. You know, Lockheed Martin. Blah blah blah. I just don't care. Like, simple as that. What are my views on the Tiger 2P? Good at 6.3? Well, it's 6.7 now, but yeah, it's good. Works well. Like, they don't have an axe to grind. Every nation in War Thunder has people who believe that they are oppressed. You know, you have the Americans who think they're oppressed because their machines don't stop every round known to man. You have the Germans who think they're oppressed because, you know, they haven't taken over the world again and they don't have the best top tier aviation. You have the Soviets who think they're oppressed because some of them are actually brain dead. You have, you know, some of the British guys who think they're oppressed because the Challenger armor values are wrong. You have the French who think they're oppressed because, once again, the Leclerc armor's wrong. You have the Italians who think the same thing about the Ariete. Then the Swedish come along and go, odio, 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 and then wonder why they're there. They naff off to the North Pole and talk about how neutral they are. And then you got Israel, who is oppressed because they don't have light tanks. So, like, everybody literally, like, every part of the community believes that they're oppressed in some weird, insignificant way. Gaijin, as a company or as individuals, do not hate countries. Like, as I said, just when you're in a position like I am, man, and you see all of the complaints from all around the spectrum, you realize that the way to actually solve all of these complaints is from the individuals who table them to just try and play some other nations at that time. Instead of just playing one nation and only having one set of opinions based around playing that nation, play a bunch of different nations. Because there is nothing more annoying in life than listening to somebody talk about how the thing that they play and they enjoy is hard done by because they faced all of these other things which for some reason aren't hard done by because they don't play them and therefore they're good and the thing that I buy is bad, you know? Thank you for the bits, KV2. That's very kind of you, brother. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. You literally mentioned Alex Jones in a video today? Yeah, Alex Jones-ims. Yeah. Therefore, you must play both the Alex Jones songs. I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. It's a banger, you know. But yeah, like, if you think you're hard done by, go play another nation, see how you feel. If you continue to be hard done by with that nation, go play a different nation, see how you feel. And just keep doing it. See which nation is favored over the rest. Simple as. You don't need to sit there and just get annoyed that your nation gets attacked. because I can find individuals from each of the other nations who have the same issues that you do with their vehicles as well. It's just how it goes. Thank you for the bits once again, KV2. It's very kind of you, man. Thank you very much. And we have Like You Cut G. Removing the pads on the black prints to lower its BR is silly, considering we have Etian Firefly with pads as a whole be lower than the Battle Pass, so that's just a silly comment. What? Removing the pads on the black price to lower its BR is silly, considering we have an Itian Firefly. Oh, removing the APDS on the black prints to lower its BR is silly, considering we have the Italian Firefly with APDS at a whole BR lower than the Battle Pass. Oh no, the black prints. So that's just a silly comment. Well, ammunition, you know, ammunition is a balancing factor, so it's just how it is. Don't know. But yeah, all ammunition or munitions in general are balancing factors. Has been for a long time. It's just how it goes. Not really much else to say. So then we have Salty Steel. Every version of the Abrams tank from the original M1 till now have the same amount of DU armor. Who let out the crazies today? So, right, okay, that is 4 nations. That is 4 nations now, where at their high-end vehicles, people disagree with their armor sets. Who let out the nutsos? Is it take the crazies to the beach fucking week? Like, what's going on? The upper hull plate angle also shatters and ricochets all saber rounds in field testing. Well, I love that. I'm happy with that. Gaijin has the worst model of the Abrams in the world. DU is 2.5 denser than RHA steel. 800mm of DU is equivalent to 2000mm of RHA. Russian Sabo, a tungsten carbide which is prone to shattering like glass when hitting angled armor and DU plates. Okay. Thank you for your thoughts. It's a video game. I will look forward to this conversation in a decade after already having this same conversation for 6 years. If I'm not completely crazy by then, with having to field the same comments about the same things over and over and over again by people who can't read and also, at the same time, don't understand the difference between all of these different factors and variables. It's time to get out the measuring tapes. Let's go. I'm looking forward to it. And we have Like You Cut G again. With Gaijin telling us Britain and Sweden are getting a 12-3 jet, what do you think Britain will get? They will get a tornado. It will be another tornado. Because why not? I think there's still a tornado they can add. No, it'll probably be some kind of weird prototype thing. I'll talk about it when it's announced. The Gripen will be fun. But yeah, they said a high tier or top tier jet, not a 12-3 one. You gotta remember when it comes to Britain, the first thing you have to think about is you have to think about one or two things. Number one, Britain is never allowed to have a meta top tier vehicle. It is enshrined in law in the American Penal Code, where Britain is never allowed to have something which is meta defining at the highest echelon of the game. It is it is not allowed. I think what people are forgetting about is there is more things in the world than air superiority fighters, and more things in the world which are much more interesting in terms of their general mechanics and all around. Why the American Penal Code? Because it's the first thing that came to my head when I decided to make up a bunch of random crap. But yeah, it's yeah, I mean, if it isn't another tornado, like there's a bunch of other stuff that it could easily be. And hopefully over the next period of time. I mean, deadlock should start pretty soon, right? I'm pretty sure, shouldn't it? Pretty sure it will. Who knows? So then we have Papa Stalin. Salutations, Tech and Chat. Monet mind explaining why you gave me the Brexit Giza key. Is that because you know French is cringe? As for you, Tech, opinion on people who go vegan to fight climate change whilst eating veg and fruit that isn't in season for most of the year, meaning that it has to come in via two of the most polluting forms of transportation, air and sea. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to fight climate change, you literally just make your own food, right? Like that's the way that you do it. No, I mean nowadays, there's a lot of hypocrisy around, and the great thing about the internet is it's very easy to follow. I'm not really bothered about activists, like the activists in general. Like I suppose have fun. But for me, when it comes to the way that life is around me and what I see going on, like when it comes to the cost of things, a lot of people like moving away from this area because it's really expensive to live in. I have too much stuff to make sure that my personal life and the people around me are good and everybody is taken cared for to worry about any stuff like that. I can't afford to be in a hippie stage in my life. Does that make sense? So when I see a bunch of activists getting annoyed at, the world exploding and, everything going wrong, fair enough. Like you do you, boo. But I have my own challenges right now. Like I don't know how many of you guys have been looking at Canada and what's been going on over the recent times. Like I live in an area which is incredibly expensive and has just absolutely massively increased in pretty much all prices across the board for everything. And at the same time, there's a lot of social unrest. They've also made a lot of changes, such as I don't know if delegalizing or unlegalizing, whatever it is. They basically made it so open drug use is okay, as long as it's under a certain amount. And this is leading to a lot of social unrest in my area and a lot of family members who are not feeling comfortable right now. So for me, like it's if you want to like protest or if you want to care about these global issues or go deal with them, go ahead. But I need to make sure that the stuff around me is sorted first before I can even think about those things. The people who do the most pollution or do the most bad to the earth you will never touch in a million years. And what ends up happening is, in order to keep getting attention for these things, you have to constantly mold what your platform is. And by molding your platform, eventually you just say dumb things, which is what we see all the time. So, for example, like you said about Greta, right? I don't know if any of you guys saw what Greta said the other day, but literally, instead of just climate change, Greta has decided to do some dumb things because the whole thing was dumb to start with. Greta Thunberg used to say her goal was to protect the planet from climate change, but she now admits it's to overthrow the capitalist system, which she says is responsible for imperialism, oppression, genocide, racism, and oppressive extractionism. So there you go. Just constantly increase the thing that you have to worry about and all of that stuff. Hey, Challenger 3, nice to see you. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, these issues are not mine. I cannot fix them. I can do my little thing and make sure that people around me are okay and make sure that my area of the world is okay. And if everybody did that, we'd be all right. But since people aren't doing that, then all I can do is just make sure what's around me is fine and, you know, do all that stuff. It's a pain in the ass, like how a lot of stuff have been going the last few years. I feel like over the last 5 years specifically, there has been a lot of stuff which has been very fluid in terms of what we're supposed to care about and what is going on and what is not going on and what you are forced to look at and what you're forced to not look at. And I'm pretty sick of it, which is why I've very much not like gone into my shell or anything on a lot of these things, but I have my formed opinions. I know how I can improve them in my own way, so that's what I'll do. You know, I'm not interested in people, like, you know, proselytizing to me about the different things. Greta Thunberg is like 21 now. She's not a kid and hasn't been for a long time. Which is why Rocker has the classic phrase, I'm very glad that Greta Thunberg is now an adult, so I can no longer pay attention to her. Because after being told constantly that she's a voice of the children and you have to listen to her because of this, she is now no longer that voice. So goodbye. Which is exactly how it is. Especially when you look at the family around her and you look at a bunch of other things around her too. There's no point. Hopefully everything's good at Fialtis. But yeah. It's just how it goes. Do I fly sim? Sometimes. Not today, though. Then we have wagon racing. Gadget wants balance and fun. That's why they make every tech tree feel miserable to play versus USSR and Germany. Sure, whatever. I'm not even gonna bother. Just more nation mains. I don't know what to say. We haven't done Friday God yet. Ephialtis. You know, not yet. Let's see. We have Wee Hee Hee. What is your opinion about euthanasia? Very, very War Thunder related. Thank you for the subscription, or Jaeger himself. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much, man. Euthanasia is a coward's way out. I think even if somebody is in one of the weakest states that they are as a human, they still have some worthiness. At the same time, me as a person, I have no right to ever hold the sword to be able to kill somebody. I don't believe that it is I don't like the idea of being a kingmaker. I don't like the idea of playing God. I think all of that stuff is definitely not in my remit. I think life in general is something that once it's gone, it's gone. Like, it just doesn't exist, right? So if you take that away from somebody, especially understanding the different advances that exist, it sucks. One of the things that's been one of the saddest things in recent history in Canada is the expansion of what is known as MAID. Now, MAID, if you don't know, is a government system which is designed to aid people into committing suicide. So very similar to euthanasia that you see in Switzerland, and also similar to other practices you see in other parts of the world. So it is a system designed for people who want to end their lives. Now, one of the most tragic things that has happened with MAID is they've consistently expanded it over the last little bit, which, you know, some people are happy about because there's a lot of nihilism around right now, and there's a lot of lost hope, I think is probably the best way of putting it, in many areas of the world. But one of the saddest things is MAID at the moment in Canada is targeted towards the disabled community. So people who already have a harder lot in life, and people who already have it harder than many others. I don't mean people who, you know, fake disabilities or just want to get, you know, just want to get money or whatever. I mean people who legitimately are born with disabilities and cannot have what is seen as a standard life. And the sad thing about the whole thing, how MAID is set up and how it's being talked about, is it's seen as a kindness. So it's seen as a way that people who want a way out of life, who cannot basically do it themselves, so somebody who is physically unable to commit suicide to get out of life, it gives them a way of being able to do it. And I can't think of a more cold-hearted, and I can't think of a harsher thing in life. Because chronic pain does exist. Chronic issues do exist for people. But the fact that some people get to a point in their life where they feel like they have to get out because there is nothing better is one of the saddest things for me as a human. Because all I do is I wonder about what has happened in their existence where they've got to that mindset. Who has let them down? Who hasn't given them the support that they needed at the time to be able to change that mindset and help them out? And we've talked about this previously, about certain things that I'm involved with when it comes to like my real life and working around this stuff. And some of the videos that I've seen, because a lot of people post about it on Instagram, you know, they are vocal about these things and about how some of them literally, they document their feelings. They talk about the fact that, look, I don't want to live in a world where every day I need assistance, or I need somebody to help me get up. I need somebody to help me go to the bathroom. I need all of these things. And the support structures are not there. So you have people who are in the most desperate situations in life, and they're also feeling like they're being forced to do this, to basically disappear, to become part of history instead of the present. And it makes me really sad, because nobody should ever feel like that. Now, the reason why I'm very much against a lot of these things is what you see in situations like this, is you see people being very affected by this. And what happens is people use it as an excuse to destroy the support structures around people who need it. So if you have somebody, it literally turns out, like from a government point of view, instead of an individual, you know how people would like joke like on the internet about, well, why don't you just kill yourself? But from the MAID point of view, it is literally like a government turning around and going, sorry, we can't support you, you might as well die. And what this leads to is, and what we've seen already in Canada, is it leads to people starting talking about the idea of defunding different parts of the Canadian social service system, because now they've given them a solution to solve the problem that social service system was there for, which was to support these people. But now that you've given them basically an ultimatum, you remove the system, So you destroy the support structure, so you in effect force them to take that ultimatum and to commit suicide. And I can't think of a sadder thing to even look at or think about. And one of the hilarious things to me is when I look in Canada and I look about a lot of the activists who are talking about these things. One of the things that they always bring up is the fact that it's a prejudicial rule because it's only targeted at disabled people. And they want it expanded to everybody. So it isn't the fact that they think that it's wrong that this is happening, where like the the support of these people is being destroyed to basically force them to commit suicide. They actually want it to be expanded so more people end up doing it because they feel it shouldn't be prejudicial and it shouldn't be focused on one group. Now, the way that I see it is it should be the opposite. You should be trying to fix or implement systems that support these people, that make them want to live and make them want to enjoy life, even if they're in a state where from an average person's perspective, they can't, you know? But what if you're terminally ill and you know the last part of your illness will be painful before you die, wish to end it before that? The way that I see it, Zero, as I said, there is always usefulness that you can bring on others in that state. But if it is down to, it's obviously an individual's decision, right? So I'd never stop somebody doing it if they want to. I would always advise not to, though. But yeah, the way I honestly see the whole thing, the way at least it's working out right now in Canada, is it is a way to remove the undesirables from society. And for me, I think, just in general, that the way that you expand, the way that you see stuff, the way that you expand a lot of these things, or just general thoughts and beliefs about things, is by talking to these parts of society. I can talk to like a million average Joes and they will all say the same thing. They'll talk to me about hockey, they'll talk to me about their job, they'll talk to me about their missus, they'll talk to me about all this stuff. What I would say is it is worth going up and chatting to people who are different and who are very outside of the standard society bubble. And the stuff that you'll learn is crazy. Like the way that they have to maneuver around certain things and the way that they have to approach things is just crazy, man. It's helped me a lot, not just like from an understanding point of view about like the human experience, but even from a work point of view. There's so many things I look for nowadays. I think about wheelchair access all the time. I think about slopes. I think about building like systems which are designed so they're not like, just to give you an example, so I had a great aunt, right? Like I had a great aunt who is my grandfather's sister, and she had polio when she was younger. Her legs, she just didn't have legs. You know, they were gone. And they set up this whole system in the house where it was a rail. So on the ceiling of every room, there was a rail which was attached to a seat, and she would literally just wander around the house like with like a stick, and she would like push herself around the house on this rail. And she would have strategic wheelchairs where she could pop down onto them. And I just think about stuff like that. And I think about a lot of the people around me. I think about a lot of the experiences I've had with people over the years. And I think about the fact that what if I hadn't had them because they had decided to end their life? You know? If they just decided, you know what? Like the government services aren't there for me. I don't have a support structure around me. I can't do anything. I might as well just go. And that makes me super fucking sad. And then I think about the people who could have influenced my life, but they're no longer here. I could show you some heart-wrenching. I could show you some heart-wrenching videos of things that I've watched of people who are no longer here, and they basically go through why they are not here anymore. They literally tell you why, and it's just so sad. Like I'll try and see if I can find one. Good evening, Laura Core. Nice to see you. Just to kind of give you like an idea of these things. Because it's really sad. But you know how it is. Oh, can I not search for stuff on Instagram? Maybe this.
Because tonight will be the night that I...
Sorry, that was a funny video. Let's see. Is it this one, maybe?
I've tried to film this video so many times, so I'm going to try one more time and then I'm going to stop trying and just go to sleep. So, MAID, which is medical assistance in dying, basically assisted suicide in Canada. They changed some legislation, so coming in...
Oh yeah, so now it affects mental health, so not just physical stuff. I need to find the videos instead of just looking at random ones. But you can find them all over the place. But yeah, it's just... I'm not going to go through any today because it'll just make me cry. So maybe we'll do like a video at some point going through them or a stream or something. But yeah, it's a tough one. Oh, I know, Zara, I know. Like it's one of those where the answer is going to be very different depending on who you chat to. But I always think, even if people are terminally ill, even if they are going to go through pain and they are going to end up in a really rough place, and even if they need 100% assistance on everything, I still think it's worth it. Because after there just isn't really anything else, you know? And other things this time relating to War Thunder. Da-da-da. Right. There's been a pattern for Gadgeon to add rank 7 premiums to be BR 10+, like the Leopard 2 PZ M1 Challenger. Now, when I look at nations like Italy, I wonder where is the Ariete premium. Then there are Japan and France. I bet people would be interested to buy something like the Time 90 or Leclerc Prototype Premium. Do you think Gadgeon could add those? They definitely will add them. The only question is, will they add them before they add rank 8 or when they add rank 8? So that's the answer to that. Second note, when I was starting War Thunder, I looked up tech trees and saw these insane SPAs with radar, missiles, and Vulcans. I bet many players would like to have something like a 9.0 or 10.7 SPA premium. Anyway, have a good time. You too. Hopefully have a good one. But also at the same time, I think it's better. I don't like them putting in premium AAs. AAs is one of those things where, first of all, we have a premium AA. But I think it's actually better if they just put them in the tech trees for people to grind out. Because I don't like the idea of people just going into battles and only having an AA. I mean, I know people do it anyway, but I mean, like, you know, basically, you know how these things go, right? Like, people end up having like just AAs and that's it, and it just seems bad. AAs are a supplementary thing, not a primary thing for me. Side note, it really made my day so good when I heard you answer my question in the last tech talk. It's a small thing, but I'm in such a bad mental health that kind of recognition makes me happy for once. Keep up the good work. You're always great to watch. Well, thank you. And also, if you are struggling, just, I don't know, pop into streams and just chat to people. The best ways to improve mental health is chatting to people, but chatting to people who are not in the doldrums themselves. So just have a chat, you know, talk to people who have been through it, enjoy yourself, have a good time, you know. But it's good that you're working. I can keep the mind off stuff, which is very positive. So then we have Soul Reaver. People still using the economy as an excuse to one spawn. I see it every single time topics come up still. Crazy, isn't it? Because narratives don't change. So narratives never change for some people. I still hear people going on about stuff from 8-9 years ago, man. You know, the most drastic thing that you have to understand is the vast majority of people don't read changelogs. They don't read, you know, the changes to the game. So I've seen people bring up like, oh, well, the game is like, you know, the game works like this because of this. And then the thing they bring up was like changed 2 years ago. Like one of the things more recently was someone was telling me how naval is dead because you can just spam HE at ships and it kills them like instantly. And it's like, well, I mean, they changed like they changed Blue Water DMs. I don't even know. I don't even know how long ago. Like, what was that? Like 3 years ago, where they made them like the compartments thing instead of like the way it is now. So yeah, it's definitely a different world. But yeah, some people really just don't change, man. Opinions aren't allowed to be modified. So we have C76 Caravan. Every time I see caravans, I just think about the In-Betweeners and Jay when he goes to Caravan Club. You know, the Clunge Club. Need to watch that show again. As you yourself say, we don't see the stats, therefore we don't know if the players actually did affect the BR, and Esmin was not telling the truth or not. I don't believe Esmin is a liar, but at the same time, of course, it would be a major blunder if Gaijin has to admit that the players have affected the BR, and it probably is easier to tell a lie as the players can't see the stats. So there is no way for a player, including you and me, to prove that they are lying or not. Also on the topic of stats, where can one see the statistic that the player base of War Thunder is the age range mentioned this last video? Well, you could do polls. You could, once again, as I said, have a look at presentations that Gaijin have done in the past. You can literally just, I don't know, ask people like Gromvoini if you want. Usually they're open about that stuff and the amount of people that play the game. You can have a look at all those things. The thing about, what you call it? The thing about the Esmin thing, it is actually negative for him to lie about this. Because if in the future, or if a disgruntled employee, or if they do leak something in the future, or even in the past, since some stats have been leaked in the past about certain things, if it's found that he's lying, then all of the credibility about everything that has been said previously gets thrown into doubt, and everything falls apart, right? So it is actually in the utmost importance that these guys don't lie to you, because if their credibility is gone, they have nothing, right? Like with Esmin, for example, and with people like Stoner, with Scarpa, there are things that they've literally said in the past that people have clung on to for years. Esmin said the R2Y2 was going to be removed. Didn't say when, but just said it was removed. There was also the policy of not going past a certain date when it came to vehicles, or not adding supersonic vehicles or air-to-air missiles or anything like that. All these things you still find old-timers who cling on to as Gaijin being shitheads, because they lied, right? That's the thing. Even though the company themselves, if you actually have a look at it, don't lie. So they have all of the they have all of the opportunity, or sorry, they have all of the reason to be honest and open with you, just not tell you the full truth, which is what all of these community managers do for every game out there. And at the end of the day, it does come down to trust, you know? If you don't want to believe them, you don't have to. It doesn't change anything either way. I think it's decent, you know, to believe them since, as I said, the consequences of them lying and being found out to lie, which is not, you know, a terribly hard thing to work out, is awful. Because then the credibility is shot forever. Because the internet never forgets. The other thing that also has to be understood. I know things that you don't know. And I hate talking about this. And I hate using this stuff. Because it feels absolutely awful to do. Because I think it shows, like, it's the whole, like, I like the idea of CCs and stuff just being pretty much regular members of the community. But there is information that I know that is not publicly available. And that's through either Gaijin employees, or it's through people who used to work for Gaijin, or people who work on the fringes as contractors. So there is stuff which is confidential, which I talk about, but I can't talk about where they're from or where to point towards, because then it gets people into trouble, which is how all of this stuff always works. And I hate it, and I hate the fact that that is a part of things. I wish honesty, I wish everything was open when it comes to that stuff, but it can't be, because it puts certain people in jeopardy. There have been many conversations I've had over the years, which have been done in confidence, and been done with the understanding that I can understand or get certain information, but I can't talk about where it's from, because of the fact that it would lead to people getting annoyed, or even it would lead to not people necessarily losing their jobs, but people would get targeted who publicly people don't know exist. Which is another thing. Like, for example, on the TEC Hub, there's a bunch of Gaijin employees on the TEC Hub, but nobody knows who they are. So it's like that kind of thing, right? So the conversations and the relationships that I have with people are not the same ones that the average person also has. That's pretty much it. So once again, just like the community managers, and whether they're lying or not, you can either choose to believe what I say or not believe what I say. To me, you know, it doesn't really matter too much. And it sucks that I can't bring in the whole, like, base of stats on things. But it isn't that, you know, they're not able to be accessed. It's that it's private information. Hopefully one day all that stuff will be public and we can go through it. I think it'll be really positive to go through it all. Hey Tank, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. But I think it would be nice to actually do that stuff. But today is not that day. So we have Fossil Canada, or Fossey Canada, sorry, not Fossil Canada. Just reminds me of that wonderful advert trying to get me to invest in oil. Canada is spelled with a can. Howdy. Howdy. How on earth do you have a gazillion unlimited time boosters? I do kind of dislike not all the boosters are not time restricted, so I could fully plan on naval for just my SL boosters instead of seeing oh fudge, 200% right there. I have to do a naval battle now to make the most out of it. I don't know if it's the case nowadays or not, but back in the day in the Warbond shop, if you bought the boosters from the Warbond shop, they didn't have timers attached to them. So basically, you know, you could play the you could get the boxes out because like back in the day before like the battle pass and stuff, I used to sometimes buy the battle trophies, but a lot of the time I just bought the boosters, because I would just kind of have them around, and we would do it as kind of like I think that we would do them as just kind of like a game to see like which booster we would get, and I'd just never use them because I never really wanted to. The idea was maybe one day just put them all together and then have a crazy match, but meh. I mean, I'd rather just leave them there. But yeah, so boosters from the Warbond shop never used to have a timer on them, so that's where they're from. Some of them also are from like certain events. Like I have a 77% one for 7 battles. That was from like a special, I think, Facebook event or something from back in the day. Same with like the Golden Eagle wages, like that they don't do anymore. So yeah, they're just kind of sat there and not really doing too much. So yeah, that's pretty much where they come from. Don't know if they're available anymore. Probably not. And yeah, me and many other people like me are probably the reason why they tried to put timers on everything back in the day. Because I just have a lot of dross in my inventory. It even gets to a point sometimes where like it has to like refresh my inventory. Like it tells me that I have a bunch of new stuff, which is not new. It just says it's new for some reason. So yeah, there you go. Then we have Alex 190 Alex. There's no first comment. Well, there is now. First, there you go. I beat you all. Ha ha ha. 2 days ahead. And we have like Yukuji once again. No more independent trees, sub-trees to fill out the trees already in the game. I don't want to have another Israel and Italy situation. Bugger all in the tree. I need sub-trees to fix it up. So nah, no more independent trees. Sub-trees more than enough. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've said it many times. Like, it's just how it is. Like, it's pretty simple at the end of the day, how it all works. And I wish that, that was followed through. I got a feeling that's not going to happen, though. I got a real bad feeling about the next year when it comes to a few things. Good feelings in others, so we'll see. I'm going to do my predictions video tomorrow. I haven't really thought about it yet for the next update. Who knows? Obviously, there's a few which are kind of bang on, but yeah, we'll see. We'll throw in a few curveballs. That's all of the messages, by the way. Hell of a long tech talk today. Nearly 4 hours. My voice is cooked, I think is probably the way to put it. Do you guys on Twitch have any thoughts or have any questions or discussion points while we chill? Oh, goddamn. That was a long one to get through. It was good though, and I don't really mind if at the end of the day this stuff takes like 8 hours or whatever. But it is how it is. Since the end of the line vehicles have reduced modifications, will you spade them or wait till something gets added after the vehicles? So, Habosa, since they have finally brought in that change, you know what that means? It means that starting next year, we go on a bit of a rampage of spading vehicles at the end of the lines. Because I have these two. And these two are 2 special collector booster boxes for Lord of the Rings MTG. One of them is the classic ones, and the other one is the ones which came out for Christmas. So there's 12, I believe, boosters in each of these boxes. So whenever we do an end-of-the-line vehicle, these are the ones that we open. So, should be fun. We're going to have a really fun time with it, actually. It's going to be a good time, and I'm going to enjoy it. So, yeah, that's... we'll do some polls on what vehicles people want spaded, and we'll start them starting January 2024. That's going to be the big thing for next year. Next year, we're going to have a heavy commitment to grinding out a lot of vehicles in the game. I want to get to a point like I did last year where I had all of the aviation ground out and all of the ground out. But also, you know what we're adding to the list? Helicopters. So should be fun. Then hopefully the year after, we will have the naval stuff ground out too. So, yeah. Big plans. Should be pretty interesting, because obviously I'm going to do all of it alongside also doing all of the battle pass stuff. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. What's your opinion on the last comments reply? What is the last comments reply? Let's see. BS, some trees are stupid. Just need more independent trees that can be mixed with vehicles from other trees that are allied. No, thank you. There you go. Simple as. Alright, that's the end of the tech talk. We're going to continue streaming and doing some other things, but for the guys from YouTube, look after yourselves. Peace be with you as always. See you next week. Bye-bye.